This is this is a courtesy announcement that the meeting is now live on YouTube and the meeting portal.
This is the call to order for the September 26th meeting of the Santa Clara County Planning Commission. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Good evening, Commissioner Cohen. I'm sorry, could you turn your mic on?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donoghue,
Here.
Commissioner Belska,
Here.
Commissioner Levy,
Here.
Vice Chairperson Rouser,
Present.
Chairperson Escobar.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Please stand if you are able to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. My name is Amy Escobar, and I am the Chair of the Planning Commission. On behalf of the Commission, welcome to today's meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any and all electronic devices, including cell phones, as they may interrupt the meeting this evening. The first item on the agenda is public comment. This item is reserved for persons who wish to address the Commission on any matter within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission that is not on tonight's agenda. The law does not permit Commission action or extended discussion of any item not on the agenda except under special circumstances. Members of the public who wish to address the Commission on a non-agendized item should request to speak at this time by giving a request to speak form, the yellow forms to your right, my left, to the Deputy Clerk if you are in chambers, or by using the raised hand icon if you are attending virtually on Zoom. Clerk, do we have any speakers?
We have no speakers in chambers, and one moment for the Zoom room. We have no hands in Zoom.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is approval of the consent calendar and changes to the Commission, or excuse me, the Commission agenda. Commissioners, do you have any questions, changes, discussion on any of the items? No? Clerk, any speakers on this item as well?
We have no speakers on the item.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second? We have a motion.
Second.
It's okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Donahue with a second from Commissioner Levy to approve the consent calendar.
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donoghue,
Yes.
Commissioner Belska.
I will abstain since I wasn't present for the previous meeting and can't approve the minutes.
Technically, you can, but it's okay. Abstention works.
Okay.
Commissioner Levy,
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Rouser,
I approve.
and Chairperson Escobar.
Approve.
Motion carries 6-0.
Moving on to agenda item number 5. It is a public hearing to consider and forward advisory recommendations to the Board of Supervisors relating to an amendment to the Santa Clara County General Plan to update the countywide Trails Master Plan map. California Environmental Quality Act is the addendum to Supplemental Environmental Impact Report pursuant to Section 15164 of the CEQA Guidelines. It is countywide, and it is ID number 121517. Does staff have a presentation?
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners.
Madam Chair, sorry, Rebecca. I need to disclose that I am a county parks employee, and that I did send a letter when I found out this was going to be on our agenda to recusing myself. I was informed by county council that there was no reason to recuse myself because I had nothing to do with the implementation or development of the plan.
Noted. Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm Rebecca Coates-Maldoon, the Countywide Trails Program Manager with the County Parks Department. Tonight, I'm going to provide a presentation on the Countywide Trails Master Plan map update, including a summary of the proposed changes to the map and the public outreach process. The map update is before the Planning Commission because it involves a general plan amendment to replace the Countywide Trails Master Plan map in the county's general plan with the updated map. The Parks Department recommends that the Planning Commission forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to adopt this proposed general plan amendment. I will start with a brief overview of the Countywide Trails Master Plan itself to orient you to the plan's goals and content before sharing more information on the map update, which has been underway since 2022. The Countywide Trails Master Plan was adopted by the Board of Supervisors in 1995. Certain portions of the Countywide Trails Master Plan, including the Countywide Trails Master Plan map, are incorporated into the County General Plan, also adopted in 1995. The Countywide Trails Master Plan envisions a comprehensive network of trails of countywide significance across Santa Clara County, both in incorporated and unincorporated areas. These trails include the Bay Area Ridge Trail, San Francisco Bay Trail, Coyote Creek Trail, Los Gatos Creek Trail, Stevens Creek Trail, and others that you're likely familiar with. These trails are intended to connect cities, regional parks and open spaces, and the northern and southern regions of the county. Although responsibility for the actual construction and long-term management of each individual trail varies by jurisdiction, the County Parks Department provides general oversight and coordination of the overall trails system. Some of the key concepts of the Countywide Trails Master Plan are that the plan does not cover all trails within Santa Clara County, such as all trails within a county park or a trail serving local neighborhoods within a city. It's focused on those broader trail connections of countywide significance. The trail routes in the Countywide Trails Master Plan are conceptual, setting general goals and intended uses for trails, but not specific on-the-ground alignments or designs, which would be determined later as part of more detailed trail development processes. The plan emphasizes use of public lands where feasible and lays out limitations on county use of eminent domain related to trails. Since trail routes are high-level and conceptual, routes can shift during later implementation on the ground, and the Countywide Trails Master Plan is not an acquisition plan related to specific properties. The plan is also a planning tool for future trail connections and is not meant to be used as a trail guide for a hike or ride on existing segments. The Countywide Trails Master Plan is the foundational guide for the county's work on trails, but does not preempt local trail plans. Instead, it provides a coordinated vision for linking the overall trail system and implementation efforts of different jurisdictions. The Countywide Trails Master Plan sets priorities for countywide trail projects in unincorporated areas, but does not set trail priorities for cities or other jurisdictions. As previously mentioned, portions of the master plan are incorporated in the County General Plan. Specifically, the preamble and policies are part of the Parks and Recreation chapter, and the map is a separate item shown with the General Plan Land Use Map and Regional Parks and Scenic Highways Map. This separate General Plan map is the component before the Planning Commission that we will focus on tonight. I will now shift to an overview of the current map update, including proposed changes to the map, information on public outreach, and map update next steps. County Parks is undertaking an update to the 1995 Countywide Trails Master Plan map, shown here, to be ultimately considered for adoption by the County Board of Supervisors. The map shows conceptual alignments for the proposed countywide trail routes, distinguishing route types and other considerations at a high level. Here is a preview of the draft updated Countywide Trails Master Plan map, which we will discuss in more detail. As it relates to the County General Plan, this effort is a focused update to the Countywide Trails Master Plan map. There are no changes to the General Plan language, including the Countywide Trails Master Plan policies that are part of the Parks and Recreation chapter of the General Plan. The proposed changes to the Countywide Trails Master Plan map from the 1995 map fall into 4 main categories. We will go through each of these in more detail. The first category of proposed changes is integration with active transportation planning. The 1995 master plan included off-street trails, on-street bikeways, and on-street bikeways with parallel trails. Since the master plan was developed, several comprehensive active transportation planning efforts have occurred or are in progress at the countywide scale, including VTA's Countywide Bicycle Plan, VTA's Bicycle Superhighway Implementation Plan, and the County Roads Department's Active Transportation Plan. The Countywide Trails Master Plan map update includes proposed changes to better integrate with countywide active transportation planning by shifting on-street bikeway determination to transportation agencies. This removes most on-street bikeways and on-street bikeways with parallel trails from the Countywide Trails Master Plan map. However, bicycle connectivity along most of these conceptual routes continues to be addressed by transportation agency plans. Some proposed overlap remains between plans, including for 3 critical on-street connections in South County that link parks and open spaces, and connections that close short gaps in off-street trails consistent with local planning. The second category of proposed changes involves a series of trail updates and realignments to better reflect current planning. Since the Countywide Trails Master Plan was developed in 1995, trails have been built on the ground, cities have updated their trail plans, park and open space trail plans have been created, new public lands have been acquired, and new partnership opportunities may exist related to trails. These are reflected in the map update while retaining the core vision of the Countywide Trails Master Plan. The third category of proposed changes is the proposed addition of trails. A total of 13 off-street trails are proposed for addition to the Countywide Trails Master Plan that meet criteria for countywide trails in the master plan. This includes 1 sub-regional trail, the Mount Eminem to the Sea Trail, and 12 connector trails. Several trails are in the urban core and are part of city plans, while others are in the unincorporated county. The fourth and final category of proposed changes to the Countywide Trails Master Plan map are modifications to the regional staging areas. The map update includes the addition of a series of light rail, train, and BART stations near existing or planned countywide trails as areas of evaluation for regional staging. The modifications also remove 3 areas of evaluation that have been added into parklands since 1995, but keep the existing areas of evaluation at Gavilan and Evergreen colleges. The map update has been underway since 2022, and County Parks has conducted extensive public outreach. I wanted to share a bit about that outreach process. In 2022 and 2023, County Parks began substantial engagement with all other jurisdictions in Santa Clara County that are involved in implementation of the Countywide Trails Master Plan, holding direct meetings with cities, state and federal parks agencies, regional open space agencies and other special districts, transportation agencies, other county departments, and neighboring counties. County Parks also met with tribal representatives, non-governmental organizations, and other major stakeholders. County Parks conducted a series of 11 informational presentations to city bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees and other advisory commissions or boards. These were conducted in virtual and in-person formats spanning a wide geographic area and were a great opportunity to collaborate with city staff and hear directly from city residents about the map update. County Parks also held meetings to receive in-depth public and stakeholder feedback on the draft map update at multiple points in the process. This included in-person and virtual public meetings, as well as presentations to the County Parks and Recreation Commission. County Parks also developed a GIS-based online feedback tool to seek public input. This included an interactive draft map, a public input survey with high-level questions, and the ability to leave location-specific feedback on the map, answers to frequently asked questions, and additional information about the map update. County Parks advertised the online feedback tool and public meetings and presentations through electronic mailings, the department's e-newsletter, social media, newspaper ads, and the department's website. In addition to feedback through the GIS tool and at public meetings, we also received feedback through direct emails and other contact from members of the public. County Parks carefully considered the feedback received and made a series of route and data adjustments on the map in response to this feedback, working closely with the relevant local jurisdictions. This is reflected in the map update before you tonight. The map update was reviewed by the Parks and Recreation Commission in August, who approved forwarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors via the Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation Committee of the board. Tonight, the map update is here for Planning Commission review, specifically for the general plan amendment component. The map update approval process through the County Board of Supervisors is anticipated to take place this fall, which will next involve review and approval by Hewlett before going to the full Board of Supervisors for review and adoption of the map update. This concludes our staff presentation, and I am happy to answer questions or to receive feedback on the map update.
Are there any questions of staff from commissioners? Commissioner Bauska?
Yes, thank you. So I have a question about the map that was available. How can I tell from this map what's new and what's old? Everything looks like it's in purple. So it's a little hard to tell what the actual changes are.
Let me just pull up the map so that we can look at it together. So the map that is reflected here is everything that is proposed in the update. There is not an overlay in this version to really show you sort of what was there before and what is there now. There were a number of route changes and alignments that modifications that were made as described, particularly related to those on-street routes. So there are a number of on-street routes shown in the 1995 map, which was also included in your packet, that are no longer shown in this version. So this version really better aligns with the current city trail plans as well as other park and open space agency plans.
So in terms of the new trails that were added,
The new trails that are added to this and are not sort of existing trails that were then realigned, those are the trails that are numerically at the end here. Let me see if I can zoom in. So in the legend, and this is also described in the map update document that was provided for reference in your packet, we added those 13 new trails with new numbers to the end of the list so as not to create confusion with the numbering scheme. So starting with C35, which is the Five Wounds Trail, all of the C numbers, C35 through C46, those are all new additions to the map, as well as S9, which is the Mount Elmenham to the Sea Trail. So that's the one sub-regional trail that was added.
okay, so basically I just have to look for any number that's higher than C34.
Yes.
Okay. So then my other question is the removal of the bike paths. I mean, I understand why it's being done, but what kind of impact is it going to have? Are cities or are other agencies going to be able to now say, oh, well, maybe we don't need these bike paths anymore?
I would say in most of the cases, the routes that are being removed from this are reflected in some capacity in other plans. Either in city jurisdictions, they have been doing that on the ground, bicycle network planning. The county's active transportation plan is currently under development by County Roads, and we've been coordinating very closely with County Roads on this process to try to align these efforts. We've also been working closely with VTA. So, on the whole, those agencies have direct jurisdiction over the road right-of-ways and the road system, and are in a better place to really dive into the nuances of the planning for those routes. We have, as I mentioned, kept several on-street routes that are critical to the success of the countywide trails network. So you see them here in the map in yellow. So in South County, there are 3 corridors that are east-west, shown in yellow, one at the north end of Morgan Hill, one at Bailey Avenue, one at the north end of Morgan Hill, and one in San Martin. And the reason that we really kept those is there's no other real practical conceptual way to get across the valley floor because of the development. You're really looking at an on-street route. There's not really a way to provide an off-street route as a realistic concept. So in those cases, we've kept those routes. We've also kept some on-street segments that are also shown in yellow within the city jurisdictions where the local city has determined that an off-street trail was not feasible or was highly unlikely to be feasible. So consistent with those city trail plans, this does include those kind of minor segments where you would be on an on-street trail or an off-street trail, get onto the city street network, and then get back onto the off-street trail.
Okay, thank you. Last question. So how much actual public feedback were you able to get through all of that outreach? What was the meeting attendance like, and how many public comments were received?
Sure, we actually got quite a bit of public feedback. It was really nice to do that tour with all of the different city bicycle and pedestrian advisory committees, because we did get a number of members showing up for each of those local meetings, and really talking about very specific on-the-ground local issues most of the time. So it was really good to kind of hear those, work with the city staff on kind of what makes sense at this scale, because this is a very high-level planning scale, and what's really something that the local jurisdiction would handle. We got over 200 survey responses to that interactive online survey. We did do fairly extensive outreach of that survey. We took information on that to all of the meetings. We distributed it to the cities. We distributed it through a variety of methods. And in that process, we did get quite a bit of feedback, both on the specific routes as well as trail prioritization, which is not part of the general plan amendment that's before the Planning Commission, but as part of the Countywide Trails Master Plan update that the board will also consider. We are reprioritizing the trails from the trails that were prioritized in 1995. So we did get a lot of public feedback about what they felt was most important in the network, and where we should focus our efforts.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Levy?
Sure, why not? Overall, I think it's an excellent plan, very good work. Couple of sort of specific questions. If you look at the map here, I don't see anything in sort of the mid county which goes east-west. I see that's primarily on the road, but is there more opportunity for on-road, on-street, connectors between some of these major trail corridors? Because there seems to be a blank there on that east-west, and although I understand that it's beyond street, but I'm just curious if there's more need for a little more on-street on these maps.
From the off-street perspective, most of those areas are within city jurisdictions. The cities do not have east-west connections. That is something that several members of the public did identify in this process, is that it would be really nice to have more east-west connections. It's very challenging, right, with the development that is in a lot of those areas. So within the city jurisdictions, this map aligns very closely with the city plans. So, working with those city jurisdictions, we weren't able to suddenly, add a new conceptual east-west connection that the city was not, already invested in implementing. That being said, the intent of this off-street trail network is to really ultimately be able to layer with all of those on-street networks that are also being planned by VTA, by county roads, by the cities themselves. And to ultimately have this, integrated network where you can have, east-west connectivity between these trails,
Right.
kind of at multiple scales. But because this plan is really focusing on the off-street trail network, and those on-street connections are really being implemented more at that local neighborhood scale, they're not reflected in this specific map.
I understand the reason they're not reflected, but as it's sort of a trails master plan, a county trails master plan, it would be nice to be able to see those kind of layers and where the overall quote-unquote master plan is as far as all the connectors, not all the street connectors, but the ones that connect the major corridors. So just, thinking maybe you need additional layers on here that identify those. We understand Parks is not responsible for them, but it'd be nice to see them. Second question is, what type of outreach was given with other jurisdictions outside the county, Santa Cruz County, San Benito County, Open Space Authority, Mid-Pan, et cetera? And because I'm looking at the connectors that go out of the county and have some questions about those.
Absolutely. So on this map, you can see a series of purple arrows that show potential points of connection with adjacent counties. And those are very carefully located. So we did meet with, we did reach out to the adjacent counties. We did meet with staff in the adjacent counties, particularly with Santa Cruz County Parks, San Mateo County Parks. We reached out to San Benito County. We talked with state parks. So you'll see over on the far eastern corner, the trail continues to Pacheco State Park. So we did work with multiple units at state parks to kind of envision what that connection would look like in an updated framework. So in all of those cases, we looked very carefully at adjacent plans and also talked with the adjacent jurisdictions to make sure that where we're thinking that the trail is conceptually exiting the county matches where they think it's coming in and vice versa. So in all of these cases, they are conceptual connections, but they are in a place that is a very likely connector based on that adjacent jurisdiction.
Okay, great. And the reason I asked that question was because I noticed there was really nothing between Upper Stevens Creek and Uvis, and I thought somewhere around the Lexington area there theoretically should be a connector. And so I was just curious, how the communications went. I also noticed down in the San Benito area, on that there wasn't very many interfaces. So that was just sort of an observation when reviewing the maps. Go ahead, Mark. I'll come back again.
Commissioner Rouse.
Oh, thank you. This is all kind of new to me. As a person who, let's just say I live in South County and I want to go on a hike or I want to take my horse out on a trail somewhere, where would I go to find out the trails that I could do it? Can I go to this and I could go here, and because I can't use this as a trail guide. I can read that and I can't do that. So do you have to literally go to whatever jurisdiction to try and find that particular park or whatever to do it? Or is there a way to literally look at the county and say, I want to try something near Lexington and be able to go online and using this map or something else, be able to find appropriate trails that I could try? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So this map specifically is a very high-level, future-looking planning tool. So we're talking, 30,000-foot level for the entire county in the long term. What's the long-term vision? This map is really designed to help us figure out how do we implement the trails and close these gaps so that we make sure that as cities and other agencies are working on trail projects, that they don't just stop at the end of their jurisdiction and not think about where does this connect to the next jurisdiction over. This is really to help guide that overall vision and make sure we have that connectivity. For the specific on the ground, I want to get out there, I want to hike, I want to ride, it's really needing to go to the specific maps of the local jurisdiction because on the ground conditions change very frequently. So, even in a county park, we have trail closures if there's, a mudslide or something like that. So we really want to make sure that people are getting that, most relevant on the ground information from the specific jurisdiction who's managing that trail. That being said, I manage the Countywide Trails program at the County Parks Department, which is a relatively new program, started about 3.5 years ago. Part of the purpose of this program is to help implement this network, help provide that coordination, help provide these links and information to the public. So, I envision that we will have more information available to the public in the future as we, continue to build out this program following the kind of adoption of this, new updated map. So hopefully we'll be able to help kind of guide members of the public more strategically to some of these resources.
So is there like apps like All Trails and other things like that sort of provide that kind of information? And do you coordinate with them at all? Not just them specifically, but apps that are trying to get people to hike more and so forth?
There are a number of apps out there for people who like to, hike or ride and want to plan their route or track their route that way. Those data networks are really looking at kind of the trails that are existing on the ground. So this effort doesn't really link with those specific data providers. But that is something that our park users use on a regular basis. They're really helpful for some of that. But in terms of actual data information, I would typically refer people to the specific local jurisdiction because they're the ones who are actively managing the trails and can provide updated conditions.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Levy.
Mark, I can get you all the trail maps you want. I've accessed tons of them. Couple more questions. One thing I really liked about the plan was the staging areas. I thought the staging areas at our transportation hubs was an excellent idea to help foster the use of the trail network. I had a question about all those design guidelines that you had in the back of it. Have they changed at all based on technical changes over the last 29 years? I guess that's how long it's been since the last one. They've been updated at all? And then next I'd like to follow up on how they're being used.
So the design guidelines are not being updated in the Countywide Trails Master Plan. Same with the policies. We did do an assessment of the entire plan, and because this plan is very high level and conceptual, a lot of those guidelines and measures and policies are really at that countywide scale, where a lot of the very specific detailed design work happens in later planning processes.
Sure.
Where you're actually building and implementing the trail, you're going through additional environmental analyses, you're doing all of the steps that you would normally do to do a project on the ground. So in those cases, the design guidelines have not been updated because they are at that very high level. You also mentioned the regional staging areas, so I just wanted to touch on that for a moment. So the map update, as I mentioned, does include a series of areas of evaluation for regional staging. These are not designated areas where you can go park today and use that to get on the trail. But they are areas for future evaluation as to whether they could potentially serve the Countywide Trails network. And one of the purposes for really adding the new series of areas of evaluation was to add that transit to trails connectivity, where looking at these transit stations, do they have capacity in the future to be that hub for people to either drive your car and park there, or to take public transit and use that as a launching point to get into the trail system. You get there, you have trail signage, you have potentially other amenities, and have these other access points that are really set up for trail users, but are not within the county park system.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I liked a lot of those design standards, especially the 150 foot from top of bank. And I understand that every 100 feet the trail is going to change. You have to use another standard, so often. Okay, I think that's maybe. Oh, I had one more sort of comment about the map. I saw that there was a parallel trail along 85 up to 17. It would be great to see that extended around the rest of the southern part of the valley, but that was just something that I thought maybe a future opportunity.
Commissioner Belska.
Yeah, thank you. What's the success metric for this effort? How do you measure that this was successful?
So, in general, I would say the Countywide Trails Network, implementation of the Countywide Trails Network has a number of different benefits, right? We're talking about recreation, active transportation, public health, climate change. This network is part of the county's sustainability master plan. So, one of the easy ways that we're tracking success is simply miles of trail implemented. We know that does not, capture all of the benefits, right? And there's certainly other metrics that we could consider, visitation uses, things like that. We do track trail users within our county parks. I know some of the other jurisdictions track as well. The city of San Jose does an annual trail count. So I would say, primarily we're looking at the mileage, but we also know that connectivity and gap closure is a big piece of it. So it's not just how many miles did you develop, but where does it go? How does it get people to the regional park system? How does it get people between cities? How does it get them where they need to go? So there are qualitative metrics as well.
Jeremy Farr, Acting Deputy Director. The other thing is that the Countywide Trails Plan, as part of our general plan chapter, it really dictates both our acquisition and our strategic plan strategies. So the goals of the Countywide Trails Plan are built into our general plan. And then we also base our acquisitions and coordinations with the cities based upon the Countywide Trails Master Plan map. So, the successes of just the county are also the successes of the cities, and we can work with the cities to help implement their plans when we have connecting trails as well.
I think you've reached your quota.
Oh, yeah, one last one.
You get one. Okay. Commissioner Lee.
All right, yeah, last question, promise. So, Rebecca, I noticed on the trail, the list of trails, it shows uses, hiking, equestrian, bike. In the last 29 years, there's been a new vehicle on the trails, electric bikes. And I'm not sure if there was any plans on separating trail use between bikes and electric bikes. I know that I sort of like the current strategy where County Parks is open and Mid-Penn has no electric bikes. It's very clear. It's very easy for people to understand. But what are some of the thoughts on electric bikes on trails, any type of restrictions?
So the Countywide Trails Master Plan, again, is very high level. It's very long term. It generally sets intended uses for these trails, which is to say, from that countywide connectivity perspective, the intended use would be to have typically hiking, bicycling, and equestrian use, a full multi-use trail. There are cases where it's hiking equestrian. There's a few cases where it's hiking only. But in all cases, specific implementation of that trail is up to the local jurisdiction. Something like e-bikes, and other types of micro-mobility devices, that landscape
exactly.
is constantly changing in terms of what is available. What we have today may look very different from even 5 years from now. So those types of specifics in terms of what is defined as a bicycle are really implemented by the local jurisdiction. So in the case of county parks, that's defined by ordinance and is enforced at that ordinance level by our operations staff. So this plan doesn't kind of get to that granularity of information, but that's really defined by the specific local jurisdiction and would also be looked at by that specific local jurisdiction when they are implementing that trail as well in terms of what uses they would be allowing on the ground.
Okay, great, thank you. No more questions.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item from the public?
We do not have any speakers.
Okay. Any additional comments from staff? No? Okay. I am going to go ahead and close the public hearing, and I am assuming we have no more discussion. Okay, do I have a motion? Move this forward.
So moved.
Do I have a second to Commissioner Cohen's motion?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Belska.
And can I clarify, is the motion to forward a favorable
Yes.
advisory recommendation?
It is. Thank you.
In that case, Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donoghue,
Yes.
Commissioner Belska,
Yes.
Commissioner Levy.
Aye.
Vice Chairperson Rouser,
I approve.
Chairperson Escobar.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. I had to let that one roll, sorry. Little trial by fire, right? Okay, moving forward, item number 6 is continued from our April 25th, 2024 meeting. It is a public hearing to consider an appeal of the November 5th, 2021 decision of the zoning administrator to deny a concurrent land use application consisting of design review and grading approval. The specific grounds for appeal are that the location, retaining walls, roof forms, and height of the proposed residence are designed to mitigate negative visual impacts consistent with the general plan, zoning ordinance, and applicable guidelines. CEQA is not applicable pursuant to Public Resources Code Section 21080B5 and Section 15270 of the CEQA guidelines. The appellant applicant is Cove Britain, the owner of the Waters Family Trust. The property address or location is 0 Peacock Court in Cupertino, APN number 351-42004. Zoning is H7-D1 and is located in Supervisorial District 5. File number PLN 20124-APL2. ID number 121489. Madam Clerk?
I do have a Levine Act announcement for this item. Item number 6 is subject to the Levine Act. Any party or their agents must disclose on the record a contribution of more than $250 to a commissioner, as described on page 3 of the agenda. Participants who have a financial interest and their agents are requested to make a similar disclosure.
And do we have a presentation from staff today?
Through the chair, Lisa Mikhail, Deputy Director. We do have with us today Senior Planner Charu Ahluwalia, who will be providing a presentation to the Planning Commission this evening. I'd also like to note that there was supplemental information that was handed out to the Commission this evening from the Department of Environmental Health with regard to water. Charu will address that at a very high level, but will be open to any questions. I'll go ahead and hand it over to Charu.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I am Charu Ahluwalia, Senior Planner with the Department of Planning and Development. The item before you, as was shared earlier, is an appeal of a design review and grading approval for a single-family residence and a detached accessory dwelling unit. Staff is returning with this item that was continued by Planning Commission on April 25th, 2024. So before staff presents the analysis of findings, it's important to understand the background of this project. For some of the newer commissioners, it may be beneficial. So in summary, staff has been working on this application since September 2020. The incomplete determination of the project was appealed by the applicant in April 2021, and that appeal was granted by the Planning Commission in May of 2021. The second appeal was regarding the zoning administrator's decision. At the hearing of the second appeal on February 24, 2022, the Commission continued this item, and thereafter on April 25, 2024, another appeal hearing was held. At that last appeal hearing, Planning Commission directed the applicant to submit revised materials, work with the department to resolve continuing issues, and also install story poles as required by the design review findings and requirements. Staff's analysis being presented today is a response to the original appeal of the November 19, 2021, based on the updated documents formally submitted to the department after the April PC hearing, and the documents were submitted on July 3rd and September 16th of 2024 that staff is presenting analysis on. So moving to the project details. The project site highlighted in red is located in the unincorporated county 2 miles west to the city of Cupertino. It's adjacent to the Stevens Creek Quarry and near the Stevens Creek Reservoir. The community where the subject property is located was created by a 12-lot subdivision within the Hillsides Design Review Zoning District, or the HSD1. The eastern side of the community, which includes the subject parcel, is exposed to the valley floor. The neighborhood is accessed from Peacock Court, which is a county-maintained road. The area on either side of Peacock Court is a gently sloping plateau, and the topography steeply descends towards the west and the east beyond the plateau area. The residence, which is illustrated by the orange ellipse, is to be located on the eastern edge of the plateau that is closer to the valley floor. The project includes a 9,200 square foot single-family residence with attached garages, a detached ADU, and a 5,500 square foot indoor basketball court, a swimming pool, 6 retaining walls, and a septic system.
Grading quantities associated with the grading approval consist of 614 cubic yards of cut and 767 cubic yards of fill with a maximum depth of 11 to 12 feet. Grading associated with the building pads and foundation includes an additional 1,582 cubic yards of cut, and no fill is proposed for the building pad and foundation. With the most recent design revisions, grading fill from the backyard, which is the area highlighted in the yellow dashed line, has been removed, and a 3,000 square foot concrete deck is proposed. Other revisions to the design when submitted in the July and September version include reduction in wall plane height to the east facade and increase in the wall plane offset to the north and south facade. Taking a closer look at the grading reduction, approximately 700 cubic yards of grading fill at 12 feet maximum vertical height were previously proposed to create a level development area in the backyard. This backyard fill with the revised version has been removed. In its place, an attached 3,000 square feet concrete deck is proposed, which is situated approximately 12 feet above natural grade along the valley floor facing the eastern edge. Staff requested a cross-section and elevation through this deck, but the applicant has not provided one. Thus, to assist the Planning Commission today, staff has gone ahead and conceptually indicated a schematic presentation of the deck shown as the brown line on the screen. Although the grading fill was removed, the proposed deck attached to the single-family residence still doesn't follow the land's natural contours and sits approximately 12 feet above the natural grade of the land. With regard to building form and massing, no substantive design changes were made. So I'd like to highlight here that this is the main concern the staff has in terms of making the findings. Staff was unable to make findings relating to the building mass and form. So this slide and several other slides, which are going to be upcoming, relate to that inability of staff to make the finding. So the two diagrams on the upper left corner of the slide are from the guideline 11 of the Grading and Hillsides Development Guidelines. The upper figure is the recommended building form of a tiered and multi-story structure on steep slopes. And the lower figure illustrates the building form that does not conform to the guidelines with a flat pad design and a massive structure that results in a significant cut or fill on hillsides. While the applicant reduced grading fill, the design didn't lower the structure into the ground, which is the purpose of the guidelines, as you can see in the figure shown on the screen. The building still does not include sufficient tiering to visually integrate into the hillside setting. Further, the proposed building form and roof is closer to the example not recommended in the hillside development guidelines, as the roof remains approximately at the same height throughout the structure and has not been broken up by incorporating varied roof planes or heights. In this slide, you'll see that the first floor and the outline of the second floor and the colored portions are, in fact, the only areas where the upper floor has been set back to reduce the apparent bulk of the structure. So I wanted to do this one more time for clarity. So this is a plan of the first floor, and the outline represents the plan of the second floor, and the colored areas are the portions that have been set back on the upper floor. So thus, this exhibit shows that the building has not been sufficiently broken up by setting back the upper floor from the lower floor. And this is a tool recommended in the guidelines to step the building with the land. Further, although the objective development standards for height and wall length have been met, the discretionary form and massing findings still can't be made. Staff still has concerns about the bulk of the building, as was shown on the prior slide and also exhibited in these elevations. Story poles were installed for the proposed residence pursuant to the design review tier 2 requirements and as Planning Commission directed the applicant to do so on April 25, 2024. As a result of the story pole installation, 3 public comments were received from the neighbors. Those properties have been identified by the yellow star symbol on the map in the slide. I believe some of the neighbors are here at the hearing today and can speak to their concerns if desired by the Planning Commission. Thus, in summary, staff has 2 key outstanding unresolved issues. The first relates to building form and massing of the residence. And the second relates to the Department of Environmental Health's water requirements. So no water will serve letter was submitted for this project till yesterday. And although the letter was submitted yesterday, DEH has continuing concerns related to the water source for the proposed development. A memo, as chaired by Ms. Mikhail, has been prepared by DEH staff and was presented to Planning Commission earlier today. To bring this full circle to the original appeal, grounds of the appeal are noted on this slide, and the appellant identified 2 main grounds for the appeal due to staff's actions and 7 grounds for appeal on the project's compliance with the required findings. The staff report details responses to each of the appeals. If the commission desires staff to go into detail of any of the appeal items, we're available to do so. But what's most important and pertinent to note is that even with the revised proposal by the applicant, staff is still not able to make all of the required findings. Thus, to conclude, staff recommends that the Planning Commission deny the appeal and uphold the zoning administrator's decision to deny the concurrent land use application for design review and grading approval. But staff had provided an alternative section in the scenario that Planning Commission were to approve this project. Considering the recent discussion regarding water service and the memo prepared by DEH, we have been advised by counsel in DEH that the record still does not contain substantial evidence that the project would comply with water requirements. So this would conclude my presentation, and our team is happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? Yes, you may. You may, Commissioner Levy.
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to ask questions.
You
anymore.
get an allotment per
Oh,
item.
thank you. I was wondering about fire insurance. An area like that seems to be very fire prone. Is there any issues with the applicant being able to get fire insurance?
Through the chair, I can go ahead. As part of a land use entitlement, we don't review insurance for properties, but we can certainly ask any of the neighbors who might be here or also the applicant if they feel there's a concern. But it's not for the findings that we have to make relevant.
Well, I understand that in hillside areas, the insurance companies are canceling everybody's insurance. And so I think that's a applicable question to, as a realistic requirement that they have to have insurance to be able to build. Okay, I'll
Commissioner Rouser?
Yeah, there are options through the state, which is very expensive and everything, so. A couple of questions. Can you bring up the slide again with, that shows the contour, the first one in the house? I did drive by and look at the story poles today, so I'll just disclose that from the street. I'm sorry, the one that shows the hillside kind of going down. Yeah. Because that looks a little different from the other one later on. It looks like the whole thing is above the current, so the resident first floor down below, is that different from the top right one? It says section F, or is that the same?
These are sections, through the chair, these are sections cut through the residence. And as you see from the topographic map of the site, that there is considerable play of grade. There's so sections cut through longitudinally and latitudinally have a different slope on the ground. But essentially, the slope is going downward towards the creek, and I can show you. Yeah, so there's the creek, which is out here in blue, and the site is sloping downward towards this area. That's the southern side
Right.
of the property.
Right.
Through the chair, there's another, go back, you just had it, where there were the story poles.
Oh, the story pole?
Ms. Alawalia, yeah.
If-
Keep going back. There were 2 or 3 pictures on the story pole slide. There you go. That shows the grade on the bottom right a little bit more, at least as you see it from the street. And then it goes down further behind the house.
And the story poles, how much of the house does that represent? Is
That
that
re-
just the part that is seen from the valley floor, essentially?
The story poles, as are installed on site, they represent the single-family residence, right? So the key map on the slide shows a dotted blue circle. So that's the location where the story poles have been installed to represent the height, mass, and bulk of the proposed residence.
Okay, and then if you can go back to the mass where you showed the areas and the roof line, which direction is that facing, this here, where you had the concern? Is that facing the valley floor? Is that facing the neighbors, lower neighbors?
No, this is a schematic. So essentially, it's
No, I'm sorry, there was another slide that literally showed the
the elevations.
The elevation yeah.
Yes.
So
the
north.
valley floor facing elevation is the east elevation, and the north and south elevations face the adjacent properties.
Right.
And both of the adjacent properties on the north and south of the property have built residences.
Okay, but the north is much higher up with
Right, that's
a
right.
hidden view, so the south elevation would be seen by neighbors and potentially people on the street coming up.
It's the other side of the creek, I believe, is where the neighbor's property lies.
Right, okay. Okay. And now that the story poles are up, has anybody at county gone to the valley floor and looked at the story poles from what we think is the view from the valley floor at all?
So yes, I was able to conduct a site visit. One visit was to the property itself, but
Right.
we did, me and another planner, we did visit the valley floor and were able to see the site and the installed story poles. This was from the Juniper Hotel. It's
Okay.
around that area, close to De Anza College. So that's the area we were able to get a visual on the story poles from the valley floor.
Okay, and how much detail could you see from that standpoint?
We could see the orange netting,
Okay,
right? So that's what is representative of the edge of the height of the structure. So we were able to see that. That again, this is not the full structure that, you know, it's a mock-up of what it's going to be, but it was sufficient to show us like the extent of what the structure would be apparently looking from the valley floor.
right, okay.
And through the chair, story poles are a tool to use for staff to understand bulk and mass when they're looking at the structures. And the county ordinance requires it 7 days prior to a hearing. And so I think the applicant did install it a little bit farther out from that to assist more time for staff to view it.
The only reason I'm asking is we went through a lot of discussion, can you see it or can you not? It's very hard to find a place on the valley floor to see this. And so when I was driving up, I couldn't find a place that didn't have trees down below where I could see it. There's a couple spots on the road, but typically my eyes are on the road because it's a curvy road, so that's not a huge impact. And so I was just wondering, because there are so few places on the valley floor you could actually see something so far away that isn't obstructed by local trees and everything. So that's all the questions I had for now. Thank you.
Commissioner Belska.
Sure, thank you. So one question I have is, when were the story poles installed? Do we have a date for that?
We do have a date for that. I can reference my email because we did get a notification from the applicant, but definitely the applicant would have that information because they provided it to the county. It was approximately 2 weeks prior to the hearing.
2 weeks
Date.
prior to today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Between 1 to 2 weeks, yeah. So I can confirm that date, if you like.
Yeah, if you could please find out
Yes.
the exact date if we can, just so we know how long it's been.
Certainly.
Through the chair, while Charlie was looking, what Ms. Alawalia is noting is that that's when the county was notified of the story poles being installed. We may want to ask the applicant if they were installed physically earlier than that.
Okay, thank you. And then I do have some clarifying questions. So there, the plans say that there was removal, substantial removal of grading fill from the backyard. And so I was trying to like look at before and afters, and it used to be called a concrete patio, now it's called a concrete deck. Can you explain what a concrete deck means? Is this basically like like a suspended structure over nothing? Like
Through the chair, that's what it appears to be. As I stated in the presentation, we did request a cross-section through this area and the applicant was not able to provide us with that section. So we don't have much details, and this is a schematic. But the retaining walls would not be supporting this concrete deck, it appears, because the retaining wall, if you see to the north out here, is not greater than 3 feet in height, and the concrete deck would be placed at 12 feet above grade, natural grade. So there will be some sort of structural system, but we were not given any evidence of that or details of that at this time.
So can you clarify where you're getting the 12-foot number? Because, so sorry, I also want to disclose, I did go out to the site. I did walk out all the way out to the story poles and wandered around that area.
Right.
And from my visit and also from the pictures, it does seem like the site slopes up quite substantially from kind of what we're calling the north face and the south face. So it seems like that sorry, can you go back to the slide where you had the cross sections? Yeah, yeah, this one, right? So it seems like where your brown arrow is, the site, the natural grade is significantly higher.
Right.
So it seems hard to infer from the natural grade over where cross-section A is, right, and assume that that's the same as where you wanted the line in brown. Now, I realize the applicant didn't add that, but it seems like we're inferring 12 feet when we don't actually know how tall that deck would be.
If I may, through the chair, Jacqueline Anciano, that's why it would have been most helpful if the applicant had submitted the plans that staff had asked for.
Sure. And then do we know, and I guess we also, since we don't have that cross-section, we also don't know what the termination, at that end, we don't know how it terminates or whether it's like.
Yeah. So the request, through the chair, the request to the applicant was to provide a cross-section and the elevation of the concrete deck as visible from the eastern edge of the property. And both of those requests, we were not able to get the response on.
Through the chair, I'll just supplement as well, as Ms. Alawalia noted in her presentation, and as you can see on the notation on this plan, this is staff's anticipated schematic because the information was not provided. So in an abundance of trying to be as helpful as possible with the Planning Commission, as we've been here a few times with this project, we've tried to assist as best we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That was.
Commissioner Donahue?
I've got two questions. The first one is, does staff have any photos of your view from the valley floor?
I have a few photographs, but it was against the sun, so they're not of great quality, so I didn't put in the presentation. But the photographs of the story poles are the ones I had taken on site personally, but I do have some photographs from my visit.
Okay.
Not in the presentation, though.
Were you able to see it very easily without binoculars, or did you have to What did you use?
We were able to see it without binoculars.
Got it.
Yeah.
Through the chair, I might assist here, if that's acceptable, in asking staff, were you able to see it with the naked eye, or did you have to take a cell phone or a camera and zoom in? I think that might be partly what Commissioner is asking.
Yeah, we were able to see it with the naked eye. I do want to share that there was, in the prior submittals, the applicant had taken a photograph from that location. So staff was able to clearly go specifically to that location and do a visual check. And we were able to see the story poles installed with the naked eye with the orange lining. And then I was able to take a photograph and zoom in as well. And I was with another planner, so we both had the same response to the visit.
Great, thank you. And then my other question is, what is the process from going from a small water system to a public water system?
Through the chair, so we do have our DEH staff here, Jeff Camp, and I'll go ahead and hand it over to him.
Yeah, through the chair, this is Jeff Camp with Department of Environmental Health. That would require them to submit an application to the state of California and then fulfill the requirements of the state to become a public water system. So without going into too much detail, there's basically technical, managerial, and financial requirements that they would have to fulfill and meet to become a public water system.
So it's more of a formal process that they need to go through and maybe upgrade their equipment or get certification.
Correct.
Okay. And just for my own thinking, how long does that usually take? Do you have a pulse on that?
It would be hard to say because this is an existing system that already has infrastructure in place. For a brand new public water system, it could take a while. But again, this is already a system that's in place. So, I couldn't necessarily put a number on how long it's going to take. But I mean, it's the fact that there's already infrastructure, distribution system, treatment systems are there. That would probably help speed the process along. But I couldn't tell you how long it's going to take. I don't know what the state's timeline is on review and how long that would take them.
Great. And then in the letter that I guess it's the latest letter that we got just this afternoon, did it say they're not in compliance, or there's something that they're not meeting or not responding to DEH?
Right now, they are in compliance. For a state small water system, they're required to submit quarterly water quality testing to us, so bacteriological testing. I did have to issue a notice of violation back in May because they hadn't submitted for the first or second quarter. When I sent out that notice of violation, they did provide lab results. We're coming down to the end of the third quarter, and I still haven't received. So right now, they're not in violation, but the days are dwindling. They have a few more days to get that information into me.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Through the chair, just for a matter of clarification in the record, in this particular line of questioning, they is the Peacock Court Mutual Peacock Court Mutual Water Company, and not the applicant, the waters.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. If the applicant is present and wishes to speak, now is that time. You will have 10 minutes combined. So if you want to defer to anybody else to speak, you'll need to reserve some time for that purpose.
And,
Do we have rebuttal time too?
oh, one moment.
Yes.
Yeah, to the chair, Mr. Flynn is in the Zoom room and has his hand raised to speak.
I'm going to speak first. So the project
Attorneys available here too for some of the issues, particularly the water issues. We only received that letter tonight, so the attorney is going to wish to respond in detail regarding that, whether that's tonight or through whatever other process. He's going to want to respond to that in detail, but a few hours' notice on this issue it's going to take a bit. So I'll be leading and go from there. First of all, I do appreciate that we've gotten down to really, according to the staff report, the outstanding issues related to building form and massing and water will serve. The will serve we've provided. That was at the request. And again, there's a new issue brought up. How we deal with that is probably going to take all of Peacock Court to resolve, not just one lot. There's 4 other lots that are undeveloped. So, let alone ADUs, this is HCD's involvement, California Water Resources involvement. There's a whole bunch of moving pieces here, but I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on that at the moment. So, first of all, respectfully, we did provide engineering and did provide the section that I believe staff requested, but we also requested to deal directly with engineers regarding these issues because there's been a lot of confusion. There is no 12-foot fill in this project. If you refer to the civil engineering drawings, there are specific spot elevations for the area in question. This is a civil engineering issue, and it's shown in the civil engineering exactly what's going on. So it's important to note, though, that in the county's own design review guidelines, which is page 21, and you can't see it from here, but it shows a deck about 20 feet up in the air. And that's acceptable in their own design review lines. So respectfully, I found it perplexing that they made an issue out of that. Getting back towards what the staff report says at this point, if you go to page 167, the county staff, and these are the 2 issues that relate to design review in the county staff report, okay? In that, they refer to guidelines that are outdated, 1999. We're subject to 2013. We do follow the requirements. So it's important to note that this site slopes 2 ways. It goes down, it's a curve. So from the front, we step down. We're actually at the high end of the site, the high property, 11 feet below the height limit. The house is predominantly 5 or more feet below the height limit. At the extreme edge, we tap it in one place. From the view side, we stay pretty level per the design guidelines, following the contour on that side. So again, I can go into further detail if you ask, but that is stuff that's from a 6-page design guidelines from 1966. What we followed was a considerably thicker design guideline that is applicable to this site. And as staff's report, if you look at it, notes we follow every single policy in those guidelines. So the second issue they bring up in the guide or in the staff report, besides the water district, that's where they note we meet the ordinances. They talk about the roof building approximately the same height throughout the structure. Again, we certainly could raise the roof, so we could do a roof like this, both ways, but we had no wish to do so. So I'm a little perplexed by why we'd be asked to raise the roof to let it look like it was stepping more down the hill. Again, the diagram they use is about a 30% slope. We have a 20% slope. So in order to get into the garage, that's a fixed point, the driveway, ding. We have to hit that point, flat. We don't grade there, we're hitting the grade. Then we go, and then we drop down 4 feet. That's where the fire truck turnaround is, and that's the entry to the house. If you look at the diagram that they're using, you'd have to enter the house from below. That's not really viable. That would be coming through the basement. Something else the staff reports notes is that this is a 3-story home. It's not. It's a 2-story with a basement. But again, I think the biggest point to this is that we do follow the design guidelines. Now we're getting into the subjective issues of did we step down far enough? Well, engineering-wise, it wouldn't be practical to do differently. We're trying to hit the garage, and we're trying to hit the turnaround. But again, we can make the house look like it's doing it, but that seems inappropriate. The neighbors have recently brought some concerns, but again, this is relatively recently. We talked to one of the property owners before he sold it, and he was aware this house was going to be here. There's really no other viable site. As said, it could be significantly higher easily, but we chose not to do so. And it's a view concern. And again, the privacy we just heard about the pool, that certainly could be handled with some planting. And I'm going to turn it over to John if he wishes to speak at this point.
Yes, we will pause the timer, and John Flynn, please accept the unmute to begin speaking. You have 3 minutes and 47 seconds.
Okay, is everyone able to hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. And thanks to all the members of the commission for allowing me the opportunity to address you on this project tonight. I think Mr. Britton has adequately addressed, more than adequately addressed, a number of the design concerns that have been raised by some of the neighbors and I think by the planning staff. And I think that we're closer to a project than you might gather from some of the comments made by planning staff. But what my particular concern is tonight, and I think you know from my past presentation to the commission that I'm an attorney representing the waters. We got this memo dated today, the water memo from the Department of Environmental Health, probably at about the same time you did, which was 5 o'clock. I got it at 5 o'clock this afternoon for a hearing that was scheduled for 6 p.m. There's a lot here. There are a number of factual assertions and a large number of legal arguments that have never been presented to us before tonight. And we need an opportunity to respond to those. I think everybody would be well served, including the commission, including the department, the staff, our clients, all would be served if we have a reasonable opportunity to respond to this large number of factual assertions and legal arguments. And so for that reason, we are asking the commission, even in the interest of due process, to continue the hearing for 30 days so that we can respond to the numerous assertions and arguments that are presented in the Department of Health memo that, again, we didn't receive until 5 o'clock this afternoon. That's my request.
And I believe that concludes comments by the appellant.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Commissioner Rouser? No? No?
Do we have any other public speakers?
We're not there yet.
Oh. I have some questions for the applicant, and it's the same questions that I had posed to the county. I would like to understand this deck, right? What is it?
The step at the view of the house from Peacock Court, the grade is going, if I'm understanding the question, the grade is going like this, okay? So the house steps down 4 feet to meet the grade and to meet the code, well, the guideline, so that the house follows the hill. If you look at it, the portion that's in back of the upper portion of the house could be approximately 10 feet higher. The roof could be. We just didn't do that. So I think that's given this impression that we're not stepping down. I'm like, we're stepping down in a it's the lot, that portion of the site is 65 feet wide.
Sorry, that's not actually
Sorry,
the
I'm
question.
misunderstanding.
The deck, right? It used
the
to be a
deck.
filled it used to be a patio. There used to be fill. and now it's just being listed as a concrete deck.
Yep.
So is this literally, is it like, I would imagine, a wood deck? Is it something
Well,
like a bunch of
we're
posts?
actually doing what's called a pan deck, so it can be a living roof. Initially, the dirt that was from the basketball court was going to be put under the patio here. And by and large, that patio is only 6 feet deep of fill going to less than 0. Staff has been mentioning one location on the north corner that's 10 feet wide, and between here and this your podium, it goes to 0. That's called out in spot elevations. I believe it's called in sections. So staff, though, said that was too much grading. So I went, okay, we'll remove the dirt and we'll truck it off site. But as the design guidelines indicate, that's a principal allowed use of the property is a deck. And so we went, okay, we still have a deck, and you can't see it. There's actually a story pole for one corner of the deck that's down in the trees that we aren't cutting down.
Okay, so this is literally a deck. There's
It's a
nothing,
deck.
there's air underneath.
There's air underneath. We can remove the sidewalls if you wanted. Then all you're going to look at is the bottom of a deck. We're just happening to make it one that you can put plants on because that was always the intent. Yeah.
Is there a sidewall facing the valley floor that's supporting
Well,
the deck?
that's for a very short distance. We have a pool facing the valley
Right,
floor.
and then beyond
And
that?
then the uphill portion, that's an area where you can see underneath the deck. You would never see it from the valley floor, but you could. And it's about 12 feet off the grade from there and rapidly ascending to less.
Okay, so that is where the 12 feet comes in.
Yeah,
where
it's that
that
one
po-
small
that-
section of the north corner.
The north corner, so
Yeah.
that starts at 12 feet
Yeah.
and goes up, but you're saying that there's no wall there.
No wall for a
There's
portion of
just
that, none.
the suspended
Yeah.
deck. Okay, that was my question, thank you. Oh, yes, and when were the story poles actually installed?
Actually, I'd have to look into my
Okay.
emails, but I notified Ms. Aluwalia that after they had just been put up. I can
Okay.
probably get an exact date, but we notified very close.
Okay,
And I should note, our photorealistic showed where they took a picture from. The house is
Sure.
indiscernible when it's not orange. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners? Okay. Are there members of the public who wish to speak, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have 5 speakers in chambers, and waiting a moment for anyone in the Zoom room. If you wish to be heard on this item, please use the raise hand icon. And we have no speakers in Zoom, so we have 5 in chambers. Dennis Brown and Kristen Brown, followed by Yi Chang, Jack Zhu, and Susie Zhu. If you'd like to line up on your way to the podium. And you will have 2 minutes to speak each. Timer will start when you begin speaking.
Thank you. Hi, Planning Commission. My name is Kristen Brown, and I'm here tonight along with my husband, Dennis Brown, and we reside at 13212 Peacock Court, Cupertino. We live adjacent to the Waters property on the downhill side of Swiss Creek, which roughly separates our 2 properties. So we're the property below, we're that yellow star below. Recently, the Waters have installed story poles to show the location and height of their single-family home. We have significant concerns regarding the massive height and scale of development they are proposing. Specifically, the visual impact to our property is extremely detrimental. The proposed huge structure looms over our single-family, 1-story home and creates significant view and privacy issues, especially around our pool. While we welcome the Waters development of their lot in any reasonable way, the height and the location of the house is simply out of character with the area. Although we understand it to be a 2-story house, its sheer vertical aspect appears at least 3 stories high and does not fit in with any of the other currently built and occupied homes on Peacock Court. In addition, the proposed location of the main residence on their lot sits far back from the road and makes the entirety of the structure more visible from every area of our backyard, as well as the surrounding community. Despite the sheer size, height, and location of the structure proposed, we have not seen any potential. Out of time?
I'll give her some of my 2 minutes.
Keep going.
I'm going to start over.
Can you
Despite
finish
the
your
sheer
thought?
size, height, and location of the structure proposed, we have not seen any potential mitigation efforts that would address any of our concerns. We are also aware that other residents have raised concerns with the height and the placement of their proposed home. We are hopeful that there is a way that would allow the Waters to still be able to build essentially what they want to build, but with a much less visibly jarring structure that is out of character with the area. Thank you, Dennis and Kristen Brown.
And the next speaker is Dennis Brown.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to make 2 quick points. One, we did submit an email to the committee with photos. And I did want to address the previous speaker, the applicant speaker, talking about this is kind of the first time that the neighbors have really objected although they've been going through the process trying to build. This is the very first time we were ever able to see the story poles. We had no idea what was going on. We knew it was a big house. I don't care if they build 20,000 square feet. As long as it's not this thing. From our property, it is enormous. It is just straight up, and it looks, as my wife said, about 3 stories tall. And we're not aware of anything that might be able to mitigate that, quite frankly. Maybe there is. We heard the idea of some planting. I don't know how that could happen. I mean, if several of you have gone out and looked at the site, I mean, you look right down. Every room in our house almost looks at it. So I really am reluctant to oppose a homeowner's right to build what they want. I really hope there's a way we can make this work, but the current design is really detrimental for us. Thank you.
Madam Chair, a question.
Yes, Commissioner Levy. Can you come back up? There's a question from a commissioner.
And this is
for
really
you.
Commissioner Belska's question. When did the story poles go up?
September 9th, we think.
Right around September 9th. I know they weren't there on
About
September.
2.5 weeks ago or something.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
About 2 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah.
great, thank you.
The next speaker is Yi Chang. Please approach the podium.
不好意思，我英文不太好，有可能需要一下翻译，所以时间稍微给我长一点，好吗？谢谢。
Sorry, he's not speaking English, so I'm his friend. Try to translate correctly.
我们在
To the chair, we will increase the timer to 4 minutes to allow for the comment and then translation. So 1 moment while we change the timer.
Agreed.
Thank you. 我是他的邻居，然后我是在他搭了这个 story pole 以后，我才知道了这里会建如此巨大的一个建筑。这块地块在我们的 Peacock 这一个社区里面是在最中心的位置，然后他建的这个建筑也将是最大的一个建筑。
He's living right behind the building, 13215, and he just noticed about 2 weeks ago that big, poster, and he said this is the biggest building in that area.
然后我发现这个巨大的建筑会对我的房子会造成巨大的遮挡。
He thinks these buildings block all his house to the city and the view and the neighbors.
我在 我在购买这个房产的时候，我没有得到任何确切的信息，这里会盖如此巨大的一个建筑。
He said when he purchased this property, he didn't get any notice that there will be have a big building right in front of him.
在这个过程当中，我问了和这个地块相连的4栋房子的 owner， 他们都发现这个房子对我们的景观和对我们的视野造成了很大的影响。
He said he talked to the neighbor four neighbors around, and 4 neighbors all think this biggest building here will block all the view for the 4 neighbors at least.
而且大家在这个建筑叫什么 building port 搭起来之前，我们都对这个项目的进展一无所知。
Before this port stand there, and they had no clue what's going on when they see those big pole there.
然后我们在他搭完以后的第2天就给那个 owner 写了 email， 但是我们在1周以后才得到了他的回复，所以我们觉得这个沟通不是很顺畅。
Right next day, when they see the big pole, and they send an email kindly to the owner, and they didn't get a response right away. It takes more than a week, and I think after we visit the city hall, and then they finally got a response.
所以我希望这个建筑师和这个 owner 能多跟我们这个社区沟通。我们这个社区总共有8户人家，这8户人家的至少在我沟通的5户人家都对这个建筑觉得有相对的疑问和一些问题，希望得到一些解答。
He thinks he has right to get all the details and the timing and notice whenever this properties was the next step. And according to the neighbors, there's at least 5 neighbors have no clue with this new property.
Okay, I am his daughter, and I am also trying to help fill in some of the gaps in the translating. I really want to emphasize the point that basically most of the neighborhood was not, or at least we were not notified that there was going to be such a huge construction project until the story poles had gone up. We did not even know what the story poles were and had to Google it ourselves to find out what they were supposed to represent. It came as a complete shock, especially for it to be at the center point of the entire neighborhood. And so,
Sorry. Can you go ahead and let her finish her thought? Because I think it's creating a big picture for us here. Thank
Sure.
you.
Do you want to add 2 minutes to the
Yes,
clock?
add 2. If you can, you finish in 2 minutes? Yes?
sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when we purchased the house, we were notified that there would or may be a building. However, we were not told any information about it. And I am aware that there was a public hearing in April. However, I don't think we were ever sent any notice of the process in April, and therefore we were unaware of it for the entire 2 years that we have spent at our residence. Therefore, since it is a building of such huge scale, the view that we had appreciated, which overlooks the city, has been blocked almost entirely, especially as we are directly across the street from them. And not to mention, this is already not accounting for the story poles of the ADU or of potentially the basketball court, which is also very close to our neighboring properties, and we have concerns that it may be too loud. So when we emailed the owners that are constructing this house, I also want to say that they did not receive the email until we had a meeting over Zoom with the entire community in which we reminded them or alerted them that we had sent an email. And it was only after that point that they replied. And I am not aware of if we have received a reply of our follow-up email to their email. Therefore, I would really hope that we had gotten more communication. But yeah, thank you.
One moment. If you could please identify your name for the record?
My name is Cherry Chen.
Thank you.
My daughter. Thank you.
Can I ask a question of staff related to what they're saying? How far out did we notice?
This was 300 feet from the property boundary.
And through the chair, we did do some research while we were listening, and the county did send notice to the property owner. What happens through the mail system, I'm not sure.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of the speakers?
I do.
Yeah, I guess it's related.
Can you hold on a second. Hold on. We're going to go this way so I get everybody. Commissioner Rouser, we'll start with you and go down the line here.
Thank you, and I'll give you $20 later for putting me in the front. I just want to say thank you for your comments, and you guys are very articulate, so I'm very impressed. As far as the notice goes, if there's not enough, there's a certain number of parcels that also get notified, right? Because in rural areas, 300, there may not even be anybody within 300 feet. So it goes beyond just the 300 feet.
And this is Elizabeth Fizzers, Deputy County Counsel. I did, upon receiving the email stating that this was the first they heard of the project, we had Peggy double check the addresses to which notice was mailed. And if I understand correctly, there were numerous neighbors, including these neighbors. So it's possible that the notice of the April hearing, was sent, but for whatever reason, not noticed or not received.
To the chair, I personally mailed the noticing and checked my affidavit and the addresses for both the April and this hearing.
Commissioner Levy, did you have a question of the applicant?
Yeah, I was just wondering if the public hearing was closed, did we have more individuals interested in speaking to the commission?
Go ahead.
To the chair, we have 2 additional speakers.
Okay, great, thank you.
Let me put a pause on this for a second, because I think they had a lot of information that's relevant. So I would like to continue, if there's questions of this last family that spoke, to let commissioners ask before we move forward, if that's okay. Can we pause on this for a moment? Okay. So Commissioner Levy, did you have any questions of the last speakers? No. Okay. Commissioner Belska.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So along the same line of questioning, so it's my understanding, so the April 25 notice was sent, and it was, because there's a fairly finite number of developed parcels on Peacock Court. Do we know what percentage of those parcels it was mailed to? Was it all of them, or was it just?
Through the chair, we can take a look, I think, at who it was mailed to and provide at least a number. That might take a moment for us to research. But for all intensive purposes, for clarification, oftentimes people receive public notices, and it's the story polls that they respond to, as opposed to the actual physical notice, which is why the county has the story polls in place. That being said, I'm going to look to staff or even clerk of the board to see if we have the ability to respond. It might not be right this moment.
That's fine. And one of the reasons why I've been asking when the story polls went up is exactly that reason, right? People will notice that, they might not notice a mailing. But just to be clear, a notice would have been sent for the April 25th hearing. A notice would have also been sent for the February 24th hearing, and a notice would have also been sent for the November 5th, 2021 zoning administration hearing.
Any public hearing, there would have been notice provided.
Okay.
I'm not recollecting the exact dates at this moment, but I can confirm that whenever there was an actual public hearing, The county did send notice to the list of property owners at that time.
So more than just the April 25th and the September 26th notices presumably went out. Multiple notices would have gone out.
Yes, and I'll just note for, clarification in the record, when properties are purchased, the county goes to the assessor's information and pulls the data. There's a lag in time when properties are purchased before that information is updated. We
Okay.
don't go down that, per se, rabbit hole. We just collect the information available at that time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Donahue, did you have any questions of the last speakers? And Commissioner Cohen? Okay, so let's go ahead and move forward with the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is Jack Zhu.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Jack. I'm a project manager in a high-tech company. I noticed that storage pool is up there. Actually, my house is not impacted much because I'm in the highest elevation. But when I still can observe from my house there. And one thing is for, I think, 12 lot, we total have 8 already established. Waters family probably is after 26 years later, we start to have to see the new house, which our neighborhood pretty excited. But we look at the project, its scope is, this is definitely much bigger than what we saw. Average, the square feet, the neighborhood probably half size of their house, yeah. So for sure, the height is definitely, from our neighborhood view, it's quite different, I would say, yeah. It's compared to other houses, yeah. We know it's not easy project. For the first time, I know, wow, there's so much work for that particular process. But we try to find out a way to, hopefully to, help Water family to build a house, but in a way that people, every neighbor can agree upon this, it's kind of in the harmonic way. We don't want the house is double the size, everyone. And that definitely, another thing is I want to mention, I'm a water engineer in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, in the Clara County, they closed the water test lab. I need to go to San Mateo. So yeah, but it take a process a little bit. I'm probably I can make it work. Yeah, so that's my I think we need a little bit more time to discuss. I think hopefully with the Water family to come up with a good solution. Yeah, that's all. Thank you. Any question? Yeah.
Any questions of the speaker? No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Susie Zhu.
Hello, my name is Suzy Xu. I'm here to represent the owner of 13220 Peacock Court, Henry and Maggie. They are out of town. And their property is adjacent to the planned project. We noticed that although the architect mentioned our land won't be used, but the construction has been accessed without our permission. Actually, Maggie had previously emailed the owner, but they haven't received a response yet. We don't want to cause any issue for their construction, but we kindly ask that the owner obtain the permission from both Henry and Maggie before they enter our property. We also have some concerns on because their house is very close to our land. So we also have concerns on the privacy and the noises. So that's our comments. Thank you.
Anyone else on Zoom or?
We do have one hand raised in the Zoom room. Bagdasarian, if you could please accept the unmute to begin speaking, you'll have 2 minutes. And his or her hand went down. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, I'm Arush Bagdasarian. I own the lot across Water's lot, which is the vacant lot. And before the story pole, I didn't think it would impact my view, but it is pretty much blocking my view. Just standing in the front of my lot, it pretty much blocks the whole view of the city, like a huge wall. Again, I'm hoping we can work out some compromise with the Waters family to build their dream home, because I want to be able to build my dream home where I want it, but this is going to be pretty much stopping me from what I want to do. So I would really like to work with the Waters family to somehow either reduce the height of the building or move it sideways or do something, whatever. I mean, to me, I'm an engineer. When I look at the roof to be that steep, it just blocks the view even further. There's nothing wrong with making the pitch a little lower. Yes, I like to see a cathedral ceiling, but at the expense of somebody else. So I would, again, not object to them having their dream home, but allow me to build my dream home when I am ready, please. Thank you.
To the chair, we do have one additional raised hand on the Zoom. Would you like to take it?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I had a question for that speaker.
Go ahead, Commissioner Levy.
Okay, thank you. From your home currently, you see the valley floor just fine?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Yes, I could not see the valley floor. I could see the city lights. They pretty much skips the hillside and Waters lot. I don't see the down below valley floor. I see the city lights.
You see what? The city lights?
Yes.
I'm not sure what, I'm not clear on the differentiation. Yeah, I wasn't clear on the differentiation between the city lights and the valley floor, because the city lights are on the valley floor, right?
Okay, again, I have to go back and look which part of the city floor. I could see Apple Campus.
You can see Apple Campus. Okay, that's clear.
Yeah.
That's the valley floor. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the next speaker, please.
The next speaker is AS. Please accept the unmute to begin speaking.
Hi, my name is Atul Sharan, and we are residents of 13205 Peacock Court. We bought the home about 23 years ago, so we are one of the oldest residents on this particular street. And I know these are very difficult problems, so I don't have a solution, but it's clear that from one side of our home, our view is definitely, impacted, right? So I think others have already registered that concern. I'd like to also make a comment that I think is appropriate regarding the discussion about the water situation. So currently, out of the 12 lots, 8 are built. We have our own wells and tank that supplies the water through this, what's called the State Small Peacock Court Mutual Water Company. And of course, everybody has a right, the rest of the lots, to construct new homes. But there are these implications that, quite frankly, I think that question was raised, that nobody seems to know or understand, which is that at some point we get pushed into being from a small state mutual water company that's completely voluntary to a state regulated entity, which we really don't know what the impact would be on the residents. So I think it's important to at least point that out, that needs to be understood, because it impacts everybody in the community. Thank you very much for this.
And that concludes speakers on the item.
Any questions of any of the speakers at this point? No. Okay. Does staff have any additional comments?
Elizabeth Fissers, Deputy County Counsel. If you wanted, I could share, we looked up the to whom the notice was mailed.
Yes,
and
please.
It was sent to 7 addresses on Peacock Court. There may be other nearby addresses that are not a Peacock Court address, but are, adjacent. It was sent to 23 addresses in total.
And through the chair, maybe after the rebuttal, we may have some clarifications to provide for the record.
Okay, would the applicant like to come back up and speak at this time? You have 5 minutes.
Take the full 5 minutes. Again, I do want to note that most of the house is well below the height limit, and it presents to Peacock Court a 65-foot wide profile. But it's also the only place on that lot that a house of any significant size could be located. It's the flattest area of the lot. We'd have to do profound grading, but we also have a geologic setback towards the ravine, towards our right, that we're not allowed to cross. We also have to have area that's relatively flat for the septic system. So that's where a house of any significant house size has to be. There's no option. We can't push it down the hill. That would be profound grading. It's just, that's it. That's the place. Lowering the height, as said, most of it is below 30 feet or below. It taps it on one area. And again, we intentionally kept it lower than the maximum. But I suspect this view is going to be blocked regardless. As far as what's typical in the house in the neighborhood, as far as height, you'll see houses all along there that have the same sort of height. And in some, those smaller houses present a much wider profile or are much more visible if you're on Peacock Court. But again, the design guidelines regarding view from the valley, we follow them to the letter, even for portions that didn't follow the valley. We did the offsets, we did the breakup. So again, it says in the guidelines that they're there to give good guidance. I'm certainly sympathetic with having a view block that you're used to for years. Been through it myself. My parents have been through it. Our friends have been through it. But it's a problem. That's the only place, and no matter what, it's going to block their view. To what extent, it's not going to change much depending on the height. Thank you.
Commissioners, do you have any questions of the applicant? Sorry. Okay. Seeing none, does staff have any additional comments?
Sure, I just want to clarify a few points that were made and provide them into the record. At no point did staff state that there was 12 feet of fill as a result of the redesign that came in, so that's just a clarification in the record. We also never requested that the applicant raise the roof. If anything, we've described lowering the profile of the residence by following the grade that exists. What we often see is that somebody, to reduce those impacts, may even grade down into a lot to achieve the square footage that they desire without impacting bulk and mass from the surrounding community, and also to reduce any visibility from the valley floor. I do want to also clarify for the record, staff did only receive the will serve letter in an effort to respond as quickly as possible yesterday. So staff did respond in as timely a manner as possible to the information that we received. We have been asking for water since the beginning of this process. So I just wanted to provide that clarification for the Planning Commission. Thank you.
And to the chair, before you close the public hearing, Mr. Flynn has his hand raised, and there are 2 minutes and 47 seconds left on the reply clock, if you would.
Let's go ahead and let him speak.
Mr. Flynn, please accept the unmute to begin speaking.
Thank you to all of you. I want to make something really clear about the sequence of events that led to the memo that we all received this evening from Department of Environmental Health about the water service issues. the will serve letter and when the will serve letter came in have nothing whatever to do with the abundance of brand new issues and arguments that are presented in this memo. We've had no, I mean, if these were real issues to the Department of Environmental Health, they should have been provided to us long before they even asked for a will serve letter. It's completely unrelated to the will serve letter. So the fact that the will serve letter did not arrive at the county until yesterday has nothing whatever to do with, as I said, the abundance of issues that are presented for the very first time in this memo that we only received at 5 o'clock this evening. And I think in fairness, or to use another famous phrase, due process, we should be afforded the opportunity to provide, to consider these arguments and assertions and provide you a written response. And it's only by way of we're asking for 30 days in which to respond to these new arguments and assertions. And I honestly believe with all of my heart and my mind that if not due process, fundamental fairness requires that we be afforded that opportunity. And I hope you agree. I hope you agree with that. These have been identified, as you saw from the staff presentation. These water service issues have now been categorized as critical path issues. That means that from the staff's point of view, an approval is not going to be possible unless we're able to address and resolve these brand new issues. So please give us that opportunity and allow us that 30 days.
Are there any questions, commissioners? No? Director Anciano, did you want to speak before I close the public hearing?
No, I think Deputy Director Mikhail just might have spoke to this issue. We appreciate that the Planning Commission concurred to get the story polls up. If the commission will recall, you had to direct the applicant to put the story polls up. We have been asking repeatedly to be able to adequately analyze.
Through the chair, also, just for clarification, we wouldn't, it's at the pleasure of the commission if you wanted to continue this item to a date uncertain or even a date specified on our calendars. I can't guarantee that within the period of time between now and the next scheduled hearing that this issue would be resolved per se. However, if the commission is inclined to continue the item, without the applicant stating that, that's me as staff reading in between the lines that they're requesting. We may want to ask clarification if that's what the applicant is requesting is a continuance.
And if I may, through the chair, just because we were having noticing challenges, I would recommend the commission consider a date certain, just so that the public will know when they can come back and speak instead of a question. Now, also, Lisa, isn't it the code that the story polls need to remain up at this time?
Through the chair, yes, the code does require that story polls be maintained. I was asking our DEH staff if it's helpful for the commission, and now might not be the time, but if you are considering a time to continue this item, we may want to ask DEH at least approximately how much time they believe is a minimum needed to resolve the water issue.
To the chair for further information, the November meeting is November 21, and the December meeting is December 19.
Before closing the public hearing, I want to go ahead and ask the applicant or representative of the applicant to come back up so we can clarify, is it your intent that you would like a continuance? What is your thought on just that piece before closing public hearing?
This issue came tonight. To be clear, I believe that this body could move on the project as a condition of approval for the building permit, because it's a health issue. But it's a much larger issue than this project. So it's a bit perplexing how we weight the approval or the denial of this project on this issue, because to be clear, there's 12 lots there approved that I believe must have water. Consistent also with ADU law, you cannot deny an ADU for water if you can demonstrate that it is available. So we've really, staff has dipped our toes at this late day into a very complex issue. If the Planning Commission can come to a decision tonight, we'd be happy not to do the continuance. But if the Planning Commission feels that they have to deny this project over this issue, well, I think Mr. Flynn's correct. Due process would be appropriate to give us an opportunity to respond to that letter. Is that clear enough?
Not necessarily, because it's what is your preference without us discussing just yet what our preference is. Would you prefer that we make a decision or continuance?
We rather be thorough.
Okay.
And reply appropriately to the issues that were brought up in the EH. Again, our wish is to be thorough and to respond to that. So we request a continuance based on the issues regarding water.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and discussion. Director Anciano, did you have a comment before we start? Sorry. You want to reserve that for a moment? Okay. All right, commissioners, discussion. You have your light on, Commissioner Donahue. Did you? Sorry.
I thought you were going to go in order this time.
We are not.
All right. As soon as I read this letter from DEH and Department of Environmental Health, my first thought was, could the water system issue be added to a condition of approval? Kind of what the applicant alluded to. It seems more of to me, it seems more of a formal process that whoever builds next, whether it be the waters or one of the other lots that haven't been built on, will force the water company into a public water system, and it is not unique to this specific project design. Is that right?
Through the chair, it's a little bit more complicated, and I'll eventually hand it over to DEH. But the process of going through the state for a state-regulated system includes financial, technical, and managerial aspects, of which sometimes these systems fail. So there is a larger look from the state at these systems. I'm going to hand it over to DEH. I am not the expert on this. But it is more complicated. And water, generally speaking, in the county is an area and an issue that is of great importance for all development that we experience. And so we do require proof of water in advance of a land use entitlement being approved.
Yeah, through the chair. What Lisa said is accurate. It's not always an easy process. The state is trying to avoid new small public water systems. What they would probably do is try to get the system to consolidate with an existing system in the area. I don't know in this area if there is an existing system that they could consolidate with, so that would be a hurdle. So yes, timeline-wise, again, I couldn't really speak to that. It could take some time, and it could be a complex, difficult process. I think when these state smalls were developed, this was back in, I think, the late 80s for Peacock Court, we didn't have the ADU law that we have now. They weren't looking at these subdivisions with the potential of having 3 dwellings on each lot and the amount of people that could be inhabiting these subdivisions. So over time, the laws have changed and the ability to develop has expanded quite a bit. I did want to speak to the comments of Mr. Britton and Mr. Flynn. I did reach out to them back in April, and I have several emails to them and also to Preeti Sharan, who's the president of the water company. And we discussed these same things, that they were reaching the maximum number of, there's actually two thresholds. There's a number of connections, and there's also a population served. And so either one of those would push them into a public water system realm. So I reached out to them back in April to discuss that. So they were made aware back in April of this.
Thank you, Jeff. And yes, it does sound like a complicated and long, painful process, but you know, regardless of who develops in this subdivision, somebody's going to have to cross that bridge, whoever builds next. So it just doesn't seem unique to this project, and in my opinion, it would be more of a condition of approval on whoever develops next. They'll have to bring the infrastructure up to whatever the standard is. And on a side note, if they were to install their own well, does that kind of sidestep this whole issue?
Yeah, that could be a potential option for them in sidestepping it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Balska. We're going to work our way this way this time.
Okay. No, actually, that was going to be exactly my question of, you know, could they just solve, because this sounds like months, years. I mean, this sounds really huge. So if they, I'm assuming there is no reason why they could not dig a well, and such a well could be a condition of approval. I believe a well would not have to exist in order for them to get the site approval.
Through the chair, a lot of our lights just went on with the conditioning. I'm going to start with the director with respect to conditioning. Before I hand it over to the director, I will note that the applicant could investigate on drilling a well, and we have a process that allows and provides for that, and it is a standard process for single-family residential development in our county prior to land use approval. So I'll hand it over to Jack and then Jeff.
Jacqueline Anciano, it is not, according to our codes, we don't condition approvals without water. I mean, it's very simple. You don't condition a project without water. It's on our checklist, it's part of our applications.
Through the chair, it's also in our ordinance code, but I'll hand it back over to the expert in terms of the requirement before a land use entitlement is issued and the option of well.
So, you know, as stated, we would require that upfront. We would need them to show that they have the required quantity and quality of water. So they would have to develop a well, and then they would have to go through what's called water clearance. So they would submit to us some water quality testing. They would submit to us a quantity test. We call it a flow test, where a well driller comes in and shows that they have substantial quantity of water available that would meet the needs of their development. And that would all be required upfront.
So that is required for site approval, not for building permit.
Correct, yeah, at the building site approval stage, they would need that.
And if I may, through the chair, if we can use the proper terminology, it's at the land use entitlement. So we're saying, we're using different terminology. It's not a issuance of a building permit. The land use entitlement is either the building site approval or what we call grading approval or a use permit. These are requirements with those land use entitlements. And the request for the information is part of the information we receive when we begin to analyze a project, not when a project is approved.
Through the chair, just this is a standard piece of information that all applications for single-family residences, or even not single-family residences, have to provide to the county. It is a public health and safety issue, and the county is often in the county can be in a liability issue later on down the line when you're dealing with vesting and challenges, construction and timing. And so this is an extremely important aspect that the county deals with on a regular basis.
Commissioner Levy.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like the sort of the commission to break this up into two discussions, because we have the water discussion, which is absolutely, if we do have to, defer based on that. If we decide that it's in conformance to the design standards, then we can say, okay, let's defer. But I think we have to decide whether it's in conformance with the design standards first. And if we make the determination it is in conformance, then we could defer to a date certain. If we decide it's not in conformance with the design standards, then we've made our decision that we'll deny the application, the appeal. First of all, I think that on the water issue, there's two dwelling units and a 29,000 square foot development, and they have 2.2 people worth of water available with the district. So that's impossible. They'll never meet that standard. There's two dwelling units, and they're not going to have one person in each dwelling unit. So I don't think it's even possible, based on that 25 number, that they have the water available. So let me finish. Okay. Did you want to just talk to that? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering, is there also, the fire has requirements for the sprinkler system and any kind of reserve on there that would be in addition just to the number of people using the residences? Because that would compound your argument even more.
Yeah, and just a timing issue. We just got the letter today, so we'd have to defer just for due diligence. So let's shift to the other topic. And I had a whole series of questions here. So first of all, I want to ask about the neighbors' concerns and whether we have any justification for any of those. And they had conformance to the neighborhood, visual impact to the neighbors, view shed of the neighbors, and privacy issues. I don't know if you need to repeat those, but those are all issues brought up by the neighbors where they said we shouldn't approve this project because of these impacts to us. Is there anything legitimate about that as far as our determination of whether it conforms to the standards?
Through the chair, I'll go ahead and start, and then I see that Deputy County Counsel here is also have their light lit. Staff has provided the analysis in terms of the impacts related to bulk and mass. Some of the neighbors have opined that the structure is blocking views of the valley floor. The county's regulations don't necessarily protect views of the valley floor here in this jurisdiction. It protects the opposite, so views down from the valley floor looking up.
Right.
So, but with respect to the bulk and the mass and the design characteristics of the structure, the Planning Commission does have the ability to determine whether or not they believe the structure meets the design review requirements. And would you still like to add?
So in case it's helpful, I'll just read a couple of the factors in the zoning ordinance for design review. And section 5.50.040 explains that design review shall include consideration of, but shall not be limited to, the following. One of them is mitigation of any adverse visual impacts from proposed structures, grading, vegetation removal, and landscaping. 2, compatibility with the natural environment. 3, conformance with the design review guidelines adopted by the Board of Supervisors. 4, and this may be particularly relevant to your question, compatibility with the neighborhood and adjacent development. And 5, compliance with applicable zoning district regulations. And then finally, conformance with the general plan, any specific plan or any other applicable guidelines adopted by the Board of Supervisors or the Planning Commission.
So of those 4 items that they brought up, one of them is the conformance to the neighborhood. privacy, their view shed really aren't things for our consideration.
The ordinance does not limit what you can consider as part of design review. It's kind of your job as the planning commission to weigh all of these different factors with regards to the design and, you know, compatibility with neighborhood and adjacent development and anything that might entail, you may consider.
All right, great. Thank you. One of the questions I asked of the neighbors is whether they could see the valley floor. And if they could see if they could previously see the valley floor, and then there's a building that blocks them, that means this building would be able to see the valley floor too. So based on a number of what the neighbors are saying, there is a clear line of sight to the valley floor from the property. So I think that is something that needs to be considered. Also, from my perspective, I think the most telling slide in the slide deck was the one where staff had side by side what their property looks like and what the standards look like. And it looked to me clearly that they had not yet met the design standards. And that, you know, we've come back 4 times now and still not meeting the design standards. So I'm of the thought that they, at this point in time, they've had enough opportunities, they don't meet the design standards, and I would just see it appealed and come back. If they really want to see this project through, they can pay the fee again and come back with a project that meets the design standards. That's my personal perspective on it. I've looked at I've looked at this thing 4 times now, and I'm pretty clear on, I think I understand what the issues are. So, but even if we do go forward, we have to defer at things of the water issue as well. I don't think it meets those standards either.
Commissioner Belska.
Yeah, on the topic of, so I guess of that list, right, we said compatibility with the neighborhood, right, is on your list and on your list, right, on both lists. Sure, on the neighbors list. But what is, quantitatively, what does that mean, right? What makes a house compatible with the neighborhood, right? I don't believe the ordinance says, you know, it can't be bigger than any other house on the same street, right? How do we quantify?
So Lisa Mikhail, Deputy Director, that's partly why this is a discretionary application. There aren't necessarily exact objective standards to apply. But generally speaking, neighborhood compatibility is going to look at the various structure sizes in the neighborhood, the designs that you find in a neighborhood, the stories that you'll find, how many stories, where is it sited on the property compared to other properties in the immediate neighborhood, how tall is it, does it flow with the grade like other properties? So those are just some high-level examples. I do see that Elizabeth maybe wanted to add some, but I've been doing this for 20 years. Neighborhood compatibility has been in every city that I've ever worked in, including the county here. So it is discretionary, but generally speaking, structure size, undulation of facades, design, architectural designs of the facades and the structures in the neighborhood, where they're sited on the property, associated grading, et cetera. And I see the light coming on.
Thank you. I think that's helpful. And I think to answer your question, that's part of what makes your job difficult, is it's not just a pure math formula where you plug in, these are the numbers that are allowed and therefore it's compatible or not. So that's where you help us make a decision.
Sure, okay, thank you for that. So like I said, I did go out to the site, and I saw it from the street. You know, I walked up to it. I will admit, my first impression was, oh my God, this thing is enormous. And I certainly have a lot of sympathy for the neighbors. But I did walk around and try to see it from different perspectives, and my conclusion was that, you know, yes, it would block some of their views. It did not appear to me from what I was seeing that the entire valley floor would somehow be blocked by this house. I do believe that it's sited in the best location that it can be. That is the flattest portion of the lot. I do think if it was built closer to the street, there would be much, much more grading, right? That really is the best location. So I don't think, so siting, right? Siting, I think, for me, it's where it needs to be. Neighborhood compatibility, there's several empty lots still there. There's nothing that says, the next person who buys one of those lots isn't going to try to build a 12,000 square foot house, right? I mean, houses are getting bigger and bigger, so, it's hard to, it would be hard for me to say that, no, this house is too big for that neighborhood because, well, the neighborhood isn't done yet. So one of my biggest concerns here is, and I think to council's point, right, we're starting to make very subjective decisions. And that becomes a very slippery slope, right? Because, just because I don't like something, that doesn't necessarily give me a right to deny it. So standards and ordinances, right, those absolutely have to be met. So in one of my other jobs, I actually work on technical standards, engineering standards. And we make a very, very big distinction between the word shall and the word should. And someone could ignore every single should in a standard and still comply with that standard. So from my opinion, all the shalls, water aside, all the shalls have now been complied with. Everything else like the foundation and the roof line not being sufficiently tiered, right? Well, what's sufficient, right? You're saying 4 feet isn't sufficient. Is 5 feet sufficient? Is 7 feet sufficient? Can we legitimately say that we have required every single house that's gone through design review to be tiered exactly to the level of the grading? I highly doubt that, right? Someone could easily go and build a completely flat house on that lot for ADA reasons, right? You don't want stairs, you don't want, right? You need a completely level lot. So I don't feel like we can say, well, no, because you're on a sloped lot, you have to have multiple tiers in your house. So I'm more of the opinion that there are some things that I think should be conditions of approval. So for example, one thing I noticed in the alternative package was that we don't require any screening trees, which is, I believe, something we could require. And I believe that would mitigate a lot of these issues of privacy, visibility. So I think that's a bit of a missed opportunity. So if we were to go forward with the alternative package, I would like to see some screening trees added to that. But beyond that, I feel like we have met the letter of the law, and I would be in support of moving forward with conditions. Thank you.
Commissioner Rouser. You're up.
All right. Thank you. And again, I just want to say thank you for everyone that took the time to come here and give the comments. It's very helpful for us to hear other perspectives. And that is one of the reasons why we insisted on the story polls. And I will digress a little bit. What Commissioner Belska said, we're in pretty good alignment on this. I have been skeptic about the view from the valley floor from day one, and I think a lot of the things that were the shoulds reflect more of a much closer and impactful view from the valley floor, and I think this doesn't have it. From what I saw on site, there are some intermediate hills or mountains or whatever in between this particular development and the valley floor, and there's a couple places where it dips down, and that's where they actually see the valley floor in these pretty narrow areas. And so there's an appeal to see the city lights, but because of it's still a low enough development that I think this is probably the best place to site the house also, and it's very unfortunate that the people slightly uphill, that's their particular view of the 3 inches of valley floor lights, and it's not protected, and it's very unfortunate, but I don't see us saying you have to build it in such a way to preserve your neighbor's slight view of that. And so as far as the water issue, that has to be resolved. People who drill wells, sometimes you don't hit water. They got a quarry right nearby. They also got a creek kind of nearby. And so there is potential for water, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it on every single parcel. So there's no guarantees there, so I think we need to work on that. I think we've tackled some, planning staff and the applicants have tackled some, almost all the issues, and so I think we're very close, and I'd like to see us try and get to that point. For me personally, the massing is not really an issue from the valley floor. I spoke to that already. It's more, how do the neighbors feel? And I think the neighbors are more, not necessarily, hey, I want one wall back a little and one farther forward. I think it's more, hey, that's blocking our view. And the privacy issue, you got one lot much higher than the other lot, and that no matter where they put it on they're going to be looking down on their neighbors. So that's unfortunate, but I do agree it might be possible for screening, but I don't, because there's such a difference. And while I'm sympathetic to the neighbors' concerns, having lived in the city where your neighbor is 10 feet away, and then I moved out to the country on 5 acres, and we were the last on our row, last house, and then these people had the gall to buy the 5 acres next to us and build a house within our site. It's like, what's up with that? We can see your house. You know, we came out here. It's all relative. And so these houses are not super close to each other. They're definitely in views, and they have 360-degree views where the house is actually, it's in view, but it's not right above them imposing. So again, I wish the houses next door to us weren't built until I had some really nice neighbors, and now we're very happy that they're there. So we got over it. So I would continue in the same vein with Commissioner Belska. I don't have a problem with the massing, and I don't think that would solve the neighbors' concerns, and I don't hear anyone from the valley floor complaining about it. And so I would say let's move off of that. And the last thing I'm going to say is I think the water issue, the applicant basically said, we have a metered water, we don't need to provide you with any more several times. So to now say, hey, this is unfair due process, I'm not buying it, but we can't approve this without solving the water process. So that's my thoughts on that.
Commissioner Donahue.
Thank you. This might be a question for Sharu. Could the applicant go through a extensive redesign, and this is just kind of a what if, so I apologize in advance for that. Make it a tiered design, raise the upper roof heights and still remain below the limit have a middle tier and still meet the height requirement, would that meet the guidelines of a tiered system? I'm still kind of grappling with that, so I wanted to see if something like that would meet the guideline.
Through the chair, before Ms. Alawalia responds, staff's not asked the applicant to raise the roof. Staff has asked the applicant to lower the profile of the structure to follow the grade. And in doing that, it would create tiers to the development. But I'll go ahead and hand it over to Ms. Alawalia.
And just let me reiterate, this is my question. I'm not representing staff or saying that this was a recommendation by staff.
And if I may, through the chair, show the policy guide, if you would, please, that shows the contour and the stepping down.
Yes, so through the chair, that's accurate. What Lisa said, that staff is not recommending that the height of the roof be raised. The recommendation is to lower the home into the ground. So more tearing of the foundation, more tearing of the massing and sitting into the ground. And that is something that we have in the presentation, the slide where we were showing the exhibit or what's the recommended form for housing in hillside development. We'll give Peggy a few minutes or a few to.
I'm ready to change the feed, but you are not screen sharing the presentation.
So sorry about that. I will reshare my screen.
And if I may, through the chair, what staff is showing, Commissioner Belska, you said, I'm sure not all the developments have stayed in this way, but this is our requirement. So when we have hillside development, what the planner is showing you is what we work with applicants to achieve. Yes, figure 21, that's on the screen.
So I'll supplement the director. This comes from the board-approved guidelines for hillside development. And this is part of the required findings that the Planning Commission is being asked to make, is that the design of the structure meets the general plan, zoning ordinance, but also the guidelines that are associated with hillside development and design review.
And through the chair, to supplement that, I do have some additional slides which relate to the structure of the indoor basketball court, which has been designed and built closer to Peacock Court. And if one were to look at the sections of that particular structure, as you see on the screen, it does follow more closely the hillside development guidelines. So staff has not raised concerns about this particular structure. And if you see the elevations too, there's the north and south elevation. And although the south elevation does have a higher height and massing, but on the other end, there is a reduction in massing. So it does sit better with the natural topography and the hillside contours. So there is potential for changes in design. Your original question was, through extensive design, can there be outcomes more in alignment with the hillside guidelines? So I would respond by saying yes, and that's being proposed on the same site for a different structure. But for the residents, we still have concerns regarding the mass and form.
Could we go back to the slide with the guidelines? Sorry. So when I look at figure 21 versus 22, in some cases, it almost looks like the roof line, and I know this is a sketch and there's no scale here. These are two different buildings, but the height on the upper figure 21, the pitch on the roof almost looks higher. Just from different angles, it could change depending on the rest of the topography. So kind of my question was, in almost goes back to what figure 21 looks like. If the roof line on figure 21, the upper roof line is higher than if it would have been more on figure 22, does that still meet your guideline if the height limits are not exceeded?
Through the chair, so I think the comparison between figure 21 and 22 is more to do with the way the home is sitting into the ground. It's not, it does call out the roof form and breaking up the roof massing, but the intention or the beginning of it is how you're building the structure into the ground. And with that building into the ground, then the roof can be steeper.
Through the
Staff
chair.
is not-
Go
yeah.
ahead. I'm going to supplement real quick. Thank you. So there's multiple variables that are being analyzed here. One is the structure design, and the other is how that structure is situated on the property. And to clarify or add to what Charu is noting, as you see in figure 21, there's an area that you see below the grade, and that's when we're taking the structure and pushing it down into the grade, and then you're finding an offset of the building form so that it presents itself as if the structure is following the line of grade. In the figure of 22, you're taking a structure that is designed almost outside of what the grade is or what the property contours are, and you're putting it on a property, and then you're filling in or cutting around all of the dirt to establish the ability for that design to be on that property. So you're taking a home, putting it on the property and designing the grade around the home in figure 22, as opposed to taking the lot and how it's contoured as it exists and designing a home onto that property.
Thank you, Lisa. And I just kind of have a follow-up question, and maybe it's more philosophical, but where's the line where we kind of, we obviously can't design people's projects, but how do we walk that line and not do that?
It's a fine line. The applicant has even asked us to provide specifics, and that's not something that we can do. However, we've offered suggestions through the various conversations and meetings that we've had and how to achieve that. It's ultimately at the pleasure of the commission on whether you believe that this design meets the findings and requirements that the Board of Supervisors has asked us all to look at. And so there isn't a way for us to design it, but the commission could provide more explicit direction towards how to get there without actually designing it. There's planning commissions may even say, I would like your second story to be a gabled roof instead of a hipped roof. That's not necessarily designing it, but it's providing that suggestion of how to move forward. That's not what I'm suggesting for this application. I'm providing an example.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cohen.
Thank you, and I know that folks have been discussing this for years, so I'm new to the conversation, but I just have, I guess, two questions. Is it standard practice not to have the drawing submitted so that we have to rely on the staff's projection of what they think it is on slide 7? And then second, in checking the staff report and just trying to understand kind of the layers of the conversation, is the project in front of us right now meeting the guidelines for grading and hillside development as required by the county?
Yes, through the chair, it is not common practice that we do schematic representations of cross-sections through the site. This was a request we've been making for since I've been on the project for at least a year, and there were other planners leading this project prior to me. So based on getting a no response, we had to assist the Planning Commission, do that representative cross-section. And that is a very critical piece of the discussion we've been having for now over a year and more, for 4 years. The grading fill and that location where the land is, most steeply sloping. So that being said, not receiving the response is the reason why we resorted to providing the schematic. And to your second question, in the staff report, we have highlighted in the tabulation that you see the areas where the findings can be made and the areas where the findings cannot be made. To put it numerically, we do have for design review guidelines and findings, we are able to not make 4 out of 6 findings, and for the grading findings, we are not able to make 2 out of 7 findings.
I have a question of the applicant's representative regarding the schematic and why it was never produced when it was requested multiple times. That here we are asking the question, why are we looking at somebody else's interpretation?
Through the chair, I'm not sure if we closed the public hearing or not. I just want to make sure.
We did.
Okay,
We did.
so I think we have to reopen it again.
My apologies. Let me reopen that, restate that question, and why was it never provided if it's been asked for to the point that staff is creating it for us?
We did, in fact, provide that. The civil engineer did. And we also have it documented that civil engineer requested to talk specifically to whoever was analyzing his documents regarding any issues they had. So that did not occur. He was apparently able to talk with the county engineer, but respectfully, planning staff are not engineers. And some of the information they've provided respectfully has been inaccurate, including the document here. You need to refer to the civil engineering and the civil engineer and the information he provides. He provided this section that staff are understanding it or don't have it. This is nothing we would want to do on purpose, but we need the engineer to talk to planning staff when it's an engineering issue directly, and that they are putting in writing specifically what they have. That means it needs to be that planner needs to say, I'm making this engineering judgment. But again, we asked for them to talk, and we actually asked for them multiple times to talk directly with the engineer, consistent with the Licensing Act.
So if I asked to have it produced, you could produce it?
It doesn't even need to be reduced. It's not accurate.
That's not the question.
Yeah.
If I
Oh, yeah.
asked to have it produced,
produced, I said reduced.
No,
Sorry.
produced. Could you produce it without question as to who's doing
Oh, no.
what and engineers and?
Absolutely. We believe we already have, but without a problem.
Okay, thank you. Do commissioners have any questions of the applicant since I've brought him up here? Commissioner Donahue.
I mean, I thought he said he had produced it or had submitted it. Do we have a copy?
Through the
of that?
chair, staff respectfully disagrees with the applicant. This has been an unfortunate discussion for some time. So without belaboring it, we respectfully disagree that this information has been submitted.
And
Okay.
through the chair as well, we would like to produce documents for the Planning Commission that indicates what the applicant was asking for. We have our engineer here. We have licensed engineers in our county. As you all know, it's required. And the very statement that the applicant has made is accurate. They demanded that only an engineer review, even though the planner asked, and we refer when plans come in to our experts. This has gone on for some time, this discussion back and forth. Thank you.
It just sounds like there's a vessel for us to be able to view a copy of this, of what the chair was asking for. So hopefully we can get to that.
Okay, are there any other questions of the applicant's representative from the commission? Okay, I'm going to thank you and close the public hearing again. I am inclined to make a motion.
I was going to do that.
Would you like to? I will defer to you then,
All right.
Commissioner Levy.
I'm not sure this motion will pass.
It may not be mine, but
I'm not sure the motion.
I will defer since you looked ready, so
All right,
go ahead.
I will recommend that we deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the zoning administration hearing officer, deny the concurrent land use application for design review and grading approval. And the primary reason, I totally agree with what my two commissioners on either side of me said. The issue may not be that significant looking up from the valley floor, and it may not. They may have potentially satisfied a lot of the requirements, but I'm going to defer to our experts in the planning department, and I think they've done a very good job of identifying specifically why this doesn't satisfy the requirements. I think if you put that slide back up, it's very clear that what's being proposed is almost juxtaposition of what they are suggesting doesn't happen. And just on this slide alone, it's like, well, you know, they're not doing the due diligence they need to do to conform to the guidelines. And this has been going on for years and years, and we keep coming back to a similar place where they're not following the design guidelines. And so I think there is an issue with the applicant actually making the real true effort needed to conform. And so based on, you know, what staff has presented and what I interpret as sort of a lack of effort on the applicant side, which is, you know, the polls went up 2 weeks ago. They still don't have the plan that's been expected from staff. That I think that it's time to go back to the drawing board. This specific application has gone on long enough. If they want to resubmit, great. And quite honestly, it's going to take them potentially years to get the water thing worked out. It's not an overnight job, and so trying to find a time certain for it would be very difficult. So I just assume put this issue to bed and have it come back when they have a plan that can be approved.
I'm going to go ahead and second that motion and invite any discussion amongst commissioners of the motion that's on the floor. Commissioner Belska?
So I agree with you that they should have followed the guidelines, that they should have designed the house differently, but should is not shall. And so, you know, guidelines are guidelines, they're subjective, and I would have concern denying a project over something that's so subjective. And then, you know, especially since, like Commissioner Rouser said, the view from the valley floor. I mean, I tried finding it, and you know, maybe my eyesight is not as good as the staff's, but I couldn't figure out, you know, where it was. So I would not support a denial over a purely subjective decision.
Any other discussion? Okay. Restating the motion on the floor is to deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the zoning administrator to deny the concurrent land use application for design review and grading approval, suggested by Commissioner Levy and seconded by myself, Chair Escobar. Madam, would you mind calling?
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donoghue,
No.
Commissioner Belska,
No?
Commissioner Levy,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Rouser,
No.
Chairperson Escobar.
Yes.
The motion fails on a vote of 3-2. Wait a minute. Yep, 3-2.
3-3. It's 3-3.
Yes, apologies. It is, I'm counting on my
3-4,
screen.
3
It's
against.
3-3 because we have one vacancy.
Yes.
Which does not, you need 4 to pass, and so
Correct.
the motion fails on a vote of 3-3.
Okay. So, does one of those opposing wish to make a suggested motion? Because clearly we are at a stalemate right now. Commissioner Rouser.
Thank you. I think we're all very, very close. We're looking at things just from a slightly different perspective. I would be even willing to make some mass changes, but I don't think they're necessary. But in the interest of moving it forward, I think we're that close. So for me, the grading is very complicated because I've been out to the site, and the way I see it, you know, if we were to go and say, okay, it can never be 2 feet off of the existing grade in some way, or 2 feet, it would never work. And especially ADA concerns and everything, your house would literally just be all stairs everywhere. And I've mentioned already the valley floor. I don't think massing is a concern. And so for me, I want to follow the guidelines, but I don't want to force them to make a whole bunch of changes just so we can check a box when it really is not going to affect the neighbors. They're still going to be upset because their view is no longer there. It's not going to affect the people on the valley floor. And, you know, I don't want to just feel good because I just cost them several $100,000 to change something when it really doesn't matter. So I'm looking for a way to move this forward. I know we can't do it today because of the water issue, but I would be willing, and that's where I was asking for the conditions of approval. Is there a way, could we just look at that real quick, the alternate conditions of approval?
Certainly, through the chair, at the pleasure of the commission, if you wanted to look through the conditions, would you like us to pull them up?
Yes, please.
Sure.
And specifically, when it comes to any of the concerns with the 2 grading elements that you said weren't met, and then there was there 5 of the design elements that you said weren't complying with? Do the conditions on the alternate, do any of them address any of those? Or are they basically, we have in our subjective ability to say we think that they satisfy those, and therefore we're basing our decision on that premise?
Through the commission, through the chair, I'm sorry, if you were accepting, my apology, if you were accepting the design as it's provided to you today, you would articulate in the record why you're accepting it, so that you would be stating it is meeting the findings of design review, it is meeting the findings of the grading approval, and encompassed within those is that it is meeting the design review guidelines and the hillside development guidelines of the county. I don't believe that any of the conditions of approval provided in this alternative address staff's concerns. They were being provided to the Planning Commission in case the Planning Commission were going to approve the project. However, with the new information we received just yesterday in order to analyze water, they don't have water. So we would not advise the Planning Commission to be approving the project without water. I would advise that the Planning Commission at least continue the item to resolve the water. And if you decided you wanted to provide any general direction or even specific direction to the applicant with regard to what Commissioner Rouser noted, his willingness around massing, that would be appropriate as well.
Okay, so there's massing and then there's contour. Those are 2 separate issues, right?
They are separate issues through the chair. They're separate issues. They are intertwined when you're looking at how the structure is sited on this hillside property and how staff implements. But yes, how you design the grading around the structure and how the structure is situated on a hillside downsloping lot, they're intertwined.
Right. No, I understand. But if I just say we think the massing is not an issue that doesn't necessarily, doesn't cover everything. It's a little more complicated to that.
Through the chair, one of the tools that was in the presentation to reduce the apparent bulk of the structure would be to set the upper floor inward from the edge of the lower floor. So for instance, at this time, what you're seeing on the lower floor is pretty much what you're, in terms of the floor area.
Well, you're describing, can you just bring that slide up where you had that little purple
Yeah, I
thing,
can-
and maybe that would be helpful for us to
Sure. I think I'll need to
understand.
stop share and bring it up.
Who's that? Halloween and Fright Night is a little early for that, right?
Right, so this is the slide I was referring to, where you start by looking at the lower floor, and it does have a certain floor area and undulations. And when you move up to the higher floor, it's in the area shaded in pink is the only differentiation made between the first and second floor. That's a very it's a quantitative tool if one wants to use it. One can reduce it, the massing of the upper floor by 30%, 40%. Again, we're not able to, because we won't get a visual by giving out that sort of mathematical solution. We still will need to analyze once it's received, but that is a very clear tool one is able to utilize to reduce the apparent bulk of the structure. And this is separate from it being lowered into the ground. As you rightly said, the two separate things we're talking about. But just for massing, this is it's a very useful tool one can use for architectural design.
And help me orient, where's the garage on this one?
The garage is to the north. It's not, yes, so that's the lower floor. You see the garage. That's the valley-facing side where we have the text on the slide.
Okay. So north is up, more or less?
North is up, yeah.
Okay. And then the hillside is on the top.
Right. And this too would impact the way the roof sits on the structure, because if you have a reduction in massing for the upper floor, then the roof required will to cover the upper floor will be of a lesser area than the footprint of the floor itself. At this time, the roof footprint, lower floor, upper floor, and the roof footprint is practically the same.
Okay. We're at the point we were in several other meetings where I think we're literally trying to put a square peg in a round hole based on the way we look at the shalls versus the shoulds. And so I'm just going to make a motion. We'll see where it goes. And maybe council can help me out. I'd like to basically approve the project other than the need for the water, but be able to get the commission's buy-off of where we're at this point so that water is the only thing left to be resolved. Does that make sense? And just see if we can get enough votes to move forward on it, so that way we're done talking about roof lines and whatnot. So I'll make a motion that we approve the project.
Through the chair, if I might, maybe
I need help.
Sure, I can see. Through the chair, I'm assuming that what you're aiming to do is declare intent to approve the project with the the stipulation that you return, so you continue the project, having it resolve water.
Exactly.
But it's declaring intent that it meets the design guidelines and the relevant findings, but for the need to provide water, in which case you're continuing it. Now, it's still a public hearing when they come
Right.
back, and all of, there's still opportunity to reconsider everything in the record at that time, but it might assist when you come back what your declaration was. It's not formal until a decision is rendered. But I'm going to look at county council to see if they like what I just provided to you.
I don't there's one appeal before you, and there's a design review and a grading review approval or denial. So I wouldn't recommend saying you're, partially approving something. It's one approval or one, denial of the appeal. And if you as a commission think that you don't want to discuss the roofs or whatever in the next, if you're thinking of continuing it, you can kind of raise that next time and say, we don't need to discuss the roofs because we already agree, but I'm not sure what you gain by stating now that as a commission you agree on one part but are continuing the entire appeal to a further date.
If we cannot agree on the massing and the contour, then maybe we could come up with some, pardon the term, split the baby type thing, where we say, go back and do it this way, and then while they're trying to get water, then they would be working on pushing the top floor 15 feet back,
Right.
or
I think you
putting
could-
an extra step in it and having at least 3 roof lines.
Yes.
Or something, but
I think you could certainly, for example, continue the overall appeal to a future date and agree to give some sort of direction in the meantime to the applicant or suggestion that the commission thinks that whatever measure you are suggesting would help the commission, when it returns.
What I'm trying to see is, do we actually need to go to that second step, or can we get a sense of that we don't need to try and design it from right here?
Through the chair, it could be, if I may, it could be simple as the planning commission telling the applicant to go back and redesign the house to meet the shall, because it does say shall in section 5.50030 and 020, or just denying the application and having them come back with a new design. It's the prerogative of the planning commission, but what's before you is considering the appeal.
I understand. We have the power right now to approve it. So we could
Without
literally.
water, through the chair, you
Can't
need
approve.
to
Not without
have
water, I understand.
Approve the design of the house and the siding of it on the.
We could say that it meets all the criteria other than the water. We could say that
and
today, right now.
You could, it's the prerogative of the planning commission, but you're gonna need to give us some reasons why. Because we have to make findings.
And through the chair, I just want to be clear, you can state today your intent. You can deliberate over what you believe in terms of massing or not. If you have another failed motion, we're still here. But you can also just continue the item and ask them to respond to the water requirements, and each commissioner can provide their respective comments on what they believe. So there's multiple options here. Approving would not be recommended by county staff.
Okay. You mind?
We can't hear you, Commissioner Levy.
Yeah, he's, okay. So I would like to make a motion that we continue this item to a date uncertain. in order to allow them to resolve the water, to get proof of water being able to satisfy the water requirement. And I would, and that's my motion, and it'd be nice if I could hear from, if we could hear from the commissioners, their opinion on the other items that staff believes they have not done.
I'll second the motion.
Is there discussion on it?
I have a question for Commissioner Rouser. Would you, early on, the applicant asked for 30 days to kind of process the new information. Would you be willing to amend your motion to a date certain of 2 months versus a date uncertain?
I don't think, no. I think it's going to take longer than that, and I don't want the neighbors to be thinking they have to come here if there's nothing to happen. So when it's done, everybody knows now that this project has story poles, and we can send email notices too, right? To all the neighbors?
I'm so sorry. May I ask that you repeat your question? We were discussing.
Can we send email notices to the neighbors? Can they?
Yes.
So we will know that they'll be notified. Hopefully they're in town during
Yes.
that time. So
Through
I
the
think.
chair, if I may, I would actually advise that the neighbors who are here this evening meet with Ms. Charu Alawalia before leaving and provide their emails. That was a suggestion that the director and I discussed earlier. So we could absolutely do that.
So is that all right? Because I think this is going to take a while.
If I may ask a clarification, so are you continuing the item in its totality, or are you approving the design?
No.
And,
No, because I said don't.
She slapped my
Split
hand,
it.
she kicked me under the
I
table.
just want clarity.
He's screaming at me. No. Okay, motion's on the table. It's been seconded.
I would like to add the caveat of I want to see the schematic that they said they submitted. That I would like that to come back as part of what they work out with the continuance. It seems to be a major issue, and if in fact it exists, I want to see it. Independent of who looks at it or doesn't on our side, I want to see it. And I think that the rest of us on this dais should see it if in fact it exists. The excuse that I only want an engineer to look at it, I'm not going to accept it again. If we're continuing this and it comes back, there's no reason why that shouldn't come back either. Regardless of who looks at it on this side, I want to look at it. And I would hope that the rest of my commissioners would want to see it, given that we kept looking at the same slide over and over again of what our staff had to create to give us a visual of this particular issue. It is something that I think is important, whether it's a should or a shall. I operate on may and must, which is very similar. And may and shall are strong suggestions for a reason. And they shouldn't be discounted and overlooked because it doesn't say you will do something. So I just want to put that expectation out there that should this continuance go through, that is something that I'm going to look for, and it will be a sticking point for me because I want to see it.
If I may, through
Yes.
the chair.
Through me?
We will look at the records that have been submitted and bring forward with our engineers what we already have in possession and present it
we've
to
got.
the Planning Commission.
Yeah, whatever we've got. Applicant's representative says they've submitted it, they've got it, they can produce it, so let's see it if this continues. So that is my interception. Commissioner Cohen, followed by Commissioner Belska.
I just wanted to affirm what Commissioner Escobar mentioned and would be more explicit and request that the applicant meet with the planning department and the planning staff working on this project in the next 30 days if possible, so that we can move forward respectfully and productively. Thank you.
I just wanted clarification on what what the schematic that you were, are you referring to the
Slide
cross?
7.
Are you referring to the cross-section where that brown line was drawn?
Slide 7, yes, that we keep bringing back up over and over
Okay,
again.
I
but
just want,
yeah.
the schematic, right, because
Yeah.
cross-section, you mean a cross-section along that brown where
I want to see the
county-
applicant's
okay.
version rather than what
Right.
we had to create, absent their version that they say exists and has been submitted.
No, absolutely
Yeah.
agree, just want to clarify.
that's what I'm-
Cross-section.
Correct.
Through the
Okay.
chair,
Yes.
if I may, we understand clearly at staff's level that a section drawing is being requested. We were careful in our representation in the PowerPoint not to call it a cross-section as we were representing it for technical reasons, so we decided to call it a schematic. So for all intents and purposes, we are fully clear on what Ms. Escobar is asking for.
Thank you.
Well, if I may, I want to be clear. You're talking about what has already been submitted. We're not asking the applicant to submit what's been submitted already to our department, right?
Whatever version exists.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Rouser, would you mind restating the motion because I think it got a little lost here? I just want to be clear that we are continuing to a date
I
uncertain.
make a motion, we adjourn. Is that
can't
clear
do
enough?
that.
Is that clear enough?
We can't do that yet.
I make
so-
a motion, we continue this item to a date uncertain to allow the applicant to resolve the water requirement.
To the,
There's a little bit more to that through the
Yeah,
chair.
yes, there was
And
more.
also, you moved to include any of the comments and requests from the commission for consideration at the next hearing. That was part of your motion.
I asked the commissioners to state
Yes.
anything on the
Massing.
massing and the other unresolved items,
Correct.
but that's not on the applicant, that's just on allowing us to do that. And everyone's spoken, but I don't know if they specifically spoke on that, but
Well, I would think.
that wasn't really part of the motion, that was more our process thing.
I would think that the applicant would take into consideration that there are a few of us here that are not comfortable with what is in front of us today.
I don't need that in a motion.
No, I understand that. I'm making a statement so there's an understanding that there's essentially 3 of us here out of 6 that are not comfortable with what we see in relation to what we're hearing from staff and what we have heard multiple times over the course of this item. So I would hope that the items that are still a little ambiguous of shall and should are addressed as part of what comes back with a continuance. It's a strong suggestion that probably represents, like I said, 3 out of 6 of us here that supported the other motion. So I'm just stating it, it's not part of your motion.
Okay.
to the,
Well, I second the motion, and I second the chairperson's comments.
to the chair, I have notes regarding a request from Commissioner Cohen for the applicant to attempt to meet with the planning department, or planning department to attempt to meet with the applicant in the next 30 days relating to the schematic. Is that part of the motion, or that was?
It's a request.
Okay.
To go, a strong suggestion request, yes, that it should occur. But it is not part of the motion.
Not part of the motion. Thank you.
No. Correct? Yes? Correct.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay. So let me see if I can get this correct, and we can put this to bed. The motion on the floor from Commissioner Rouser is to continue this to a date uncertain, to a date uncertain. That's it. I mean, well, addressing the water issue, with the certainty to address the water issue.
To allow them to address the water issue.
Okay. You got that, Madam Clerk?
I'll clerk it up a little bit.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And we have a second by Commissioner Levy, so I think we're okay now to call for a vote, please.
Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Donoghue,
Yes.
Commissioner Belska,
Yes.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Rouser?
I approve.
Chairperson Escobar?
Yes.
Motion carries with 6.
So just a reminder through the chair for any of the neighbors to please do meet with Ms. Alawalia and provide your email so we can ensure that upon the next notice that you receive notification.
Okay, number 7, receive report from chairperson. I have no report. Number 8, receive reports from commissioners. Any reports from, no? Okay, seeing none. Number 9, receive report from county council.
Thank you. I just have a very brief statement, which is that in case it's not already obvious, I am now permanently assigned to advising the Planning Commission effective at today's meeting. And I just wanted to thank Lizanne Reynolds, who was the prior assigned counsel, who has very expertly served the Planning Commission for the last couple years, in addition to earlier, back in the early 2000s to early 2010s. And I think many people here and people that have appeared before the Planning Commission appreciate all of her advice over the years.
Through the chair real quick, I may just quickly ask Ms. Alawalia, it might be good to step away from the, it's okay, I'm sorry to be rude. Thank you.
Number 10, receive report from planning commission secretary. Back to you.
I have nothing to report. I believe there is an item, though, slated to come to our November meeting, if I remember correctly. But if not, we'll be notifying the commission if there were no items.
Apologies, did you mean November or October?
October or November?
I guess I mean October. There are no, yes, I think it's October. I'm sorry, everybody.
November would be ideal given Thanksgiving, but
Yeah.
okay, all right. Okay, thank you.
I'll keep you posted.
11, receive report from Deputy Director of Planning Services, Department of Planning and Development, Ms. Anciano. I'm sorry, back to you,
That's okay.
sorry. I jumped, sorry.
I have nothing to report.
I didn't mean it that way. Number 12 now belongs to our Director Anciano.
Yes, I want, thank you, Chair Escobar. I want to report that we are excited that we have new staff that have joined us. We are now in the single digits as far as our vacancy rate. At one point, the commission will recall we were at a 25% vacancy rate. We are now at 9.40%. We have a new code enforcement program manager joining us on the 25th of October. His name is Daryl Revere. We're very excited. We have added a senior planner to our planning division and a new code enforcement officer who was previously one of our permit technicians has returned. And so we're very excited to begin to staff up, right, so that we can begin to be more responsive to the residents of the county. So we're very excited about that. I also want the commission to know that we're changing our approach. We are working on a program called CI Care, and it is something we're creating. It's something that exists in the health industry, but we're modifying it to fit the planning and development department. We're changing our approach for people-centered services because we have received a lot of complaints about our process. And so in working with the deputy, the deputy county executive assigned to that we are assigned to, Sylvia Gallegos, you all might know her. We're working on transforming our development permit process along with Sylvia's assistance and transforming how we process permits. We will be returning back an opportunity for people to meet with the subject matter experts in person because we're finding that there's a disconnect with our ability to serve people with technology. It worked for us through COVID because we were trying to service and keep people safe, but now we are recognizing that there's a balance we're looking to strike. And so we're looking to when we're sending comments out, after the second round of comments, we're starting to meet with applicants instead of them just staying in this perpetual place of incomplete or not being processed. So we're excited about this. It's a change that is going to take probably years for us to complete because it also requires us changing our ordinances and changing how we do business. But as an executive team, and just so you all know, our whole team, we have an executive team. Lisa is the deputy director over our planning services. Michael Alvarez is the deputy director over development services, and he is our building official. And we have a deputy director, Stuart Petrie, who is over all of our administration. So all of those units used to what's the right term? Report directly to me. And it was too much to really handle. And so we're excited. I'm excited to have the executive team, and we are looking forward to doing better business and serving the residents better. So I want to share that with you because we're excited about what's to come.
Okay, thank you. And with that, I will acknowledge that we received correspondence that was sent to planning commissioners, and we are adjourned. The next regular meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 24th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in the Board of Supervisors chambers here at 70 West Heading Street in San Jose. Thank you.
I don't hear that gavel.